Chapter 4484. Thousand kills. Don't make sarcastic remarks here. You're a great venerate of the other ghost clan, but you don't even have any subordinates you can send out. You still have to rely on our subordinates to gather information. Now that our subordinates have been captured, you're still gloating over our misfortune. Don't you think that's too much? A tall, beautiful woman dressed in red looked askance at the armored man as she spoke coldly and rudely. The armored man named Thousand Kills sneered and said, "Am I wrong? We're not asking them to fight a bloody battle. We're just asking them to gather information. If they can't even do such a small thing, aren't they useless? All right, the two of you stop arguing. Our goal this time is the heaven and earth furnace. We already know that the heaven and earth furnace is in Shun Iji's hands. The question now is, how are we going to get the heaven and earth furnace from Shun Iji?" The dignified man dressed in a gold-threaded robe frowned slightly as he spoke in a low voice. "Our men have intercepted and killed many of the people Anchi sent to the heaven and earth furnace. Speaking of which, it's been some time since the last person was killed. I think Anchi might send more people here. Why hasn't there been any news yet?" The old man in a Taoist robe, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. In an instant, the room fell silent. The other three people all looked thoughtful. "Don't you think it's too sudden that the lamp elder and the other two were suddenly captured? Could it be?" The beautiful woman's beautiful eyes shone with a trace of coldness as she suddenly spoke. "Not good. It's very likely that the people Anchi sent this time have already entered the purple heaven sacred ground. According to my informant's report, an outsider was brought to the peak of Divine Firmament Peak by the enforcement elder a day ago." The old man in a Taoist robe suddenly turned pale with fright as he waved his horsetail whisk. "What? Yinshin, why didn't you tell us earlier that you had this information?" Thousand Kills' pupils constricted as he spoke in anger. The golden-robed man and the beautiful woman both looked at the Taoist-robed old man in shock and anger. Their thoughts were the same as Thousand Kills. They both felt that the Taoist-robed old man was too unkind. The elder in Taoist robes said with a dark expression, "The cultivator who was brought to the divine firmament peak by the purple heaven holy ground was only at the mid-cosmic Dharma stage. At that time, I didn't care about such a level of cultivation, so I didn't say anything." The expressions of Thousand Kills, the golden-robed man, and the beautiful woman all became extremely ugly. They were so smart that they immediately thought of the people sent by Shi from the moment old man Ming Dang and the other two were suddenly detained and brought to Divine Firmament Peak. Given Shun Iji's shrewdness, the moment he hands over the heaven and earth furnace to Shi's people, he will definitely arrange a secret passage for them to secretly leave. It's already unwise for us to continue waiting in Violet Water Caltrip City. Thousand Kills' eyes were cold as he spoke in a low voice. "Oomph. So what if Shun Iji had prepared a secret passage? There's only one port city in the entire Purple Chestnut domain, and only that city can leave the Purple Chestnut domain." The golden-robed man suddenly stood up and continued, "Let's go. There's no point in continuing to stay here. Let's go to Violet Water Caltrip City." Thousand Kills suddenly laughed. "Brother Luo, didn't Yinshin say that? The person she sent this time is just trash at the Cosmic Dharma stage. Do you need to personally deal with this kind of trash?" The golden-robed man said indifferently, "I personally prefer to do things myself. I don't like to trouble my subordinates to do such things." "What a coincidence. Brother Luo, my thoughts coincide with yours. I'll go with you." Thousand Kills sneered. "Count us in." The elder in Taoist robes and the beautiful woman also stood up, unwilling to be outdone. A cold glint flashed across the golden-robed man's eyes before he smiled. "Since the three of you have the same idea, let's go together." Zhuowen walked in the secret passage for a long time before finally seeing a bright light in front of him. When he walked completely into the light, he discovered that he had arrived at a place where a mountain peak and a dense forest met. This is a mountain forest hundreds of miles northeast of Violet Water Caltrip City. This place is extremely hidden and no one can discover it. If you leave from here, you won't be discovered. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor, Nioibo Studio Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio. The boy held a lantern in his right hand and looked at Juon expressionlessly. Violet Water Caltrip City is the only port city in the Violet Water Caltrip realm. If you want to leave the Violet Water Caltrip realm, you must go to Violet Water Caltrip City. There must be many experts guarding the city, so you must be careful. The girl spoke. Although her voice was cold, her words were filled with an instructive tone. Many thanks to the two of you. This Zhuo will take his leave. Zhuoan cupped his fists at the golden boy and jade girl in front of him, then turned into a stream of light and quickly fled into the distance. Sister, do you think he can successfully bring back the heaven and earth furnace? The boy asked. It'll be difficult, but since the old sect master believes in him, we don't need to make wild guesses. We can only wish him good luck. The girl shook her head and beckoned to the boy. The two of them walked back into the pitch-black passage. After leaving Violet Water Caltrip City, Zhuoan took out the chariot and rushed towards Violet Water Caltrip City. The chariot was simply too fast. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at Violet Water Caltrip City. However, Zhuoan didn't stop at Violet Water Caltrip City at all. He left the Violet Water Caltrip realm from the docks as fast as lightning. Many of the patrolling guard at the docks couldn't even see the chariot clearly. They only felt a gust of wind whistling past, and then there was nothing in front of them. 3 days after Zhuoan left the Violet Water Caltrip realm, 1,000 Kills and the other 3 arrived at Violet Water Caltrip City. Ordinary cultivators take at least 10 days to travel from Violet Water Caltrip City to Violet Water Caltrip City, but we only took 3 days. I don't think Anshi's people have reached Violet Water Caltrip City yet. 1,000 Kills said proudly. Although we don't know who Anshi sent, who exactly is it? However, the aura of the heaven and earth furnace can't be completely concealed. As long as that person brings the heaven and earth furnace to Violet Water Caltrip City, I'll be able to sense it immediately. The golden-robed man's body flickered with a dazzling golden brilliance, like a slowly rising sun. His entire person was filled with indescribable confidence. Let's wait near the docks. Speaking of which, Anshi is really unlucky. The news of the heaven and earth furnace was suddenly leaked, and so many of her subordinates' lives were lost for no reason. Now, even the heaven and earth furnace is going to be lost. The old man in Taoist robes had a mocking smile on his face as he spoke in a strange tone. Let's go. What's the use of saying so much now? Only by truly obtaining the heaven and earth furnace can we be considered to have succeeded, the beautiful woman said indifferently. The 4 of them found in near the docks and monitored the docks' movements almost day and night. 1 day, 2 days, 10 days, 15 days, 20 days, even after 2 months, the 4 of them still had no results. Not to mention Anshi's people. They couldn't even sense a trace of the heaven and earth furnace's aura. What's going on? Could it be that Anshi's people are afraid of being ambushed, so they don't dare to come to Violet Water Caltrip City and are hiding somewhere else? 1,000 Kills finally lost his patience and bellowed. Someone sent us a message, the golden-robed man suddenly said. Who sent it? 1,000 Kills asked coldly. The golden-robed man had a strange look in his eyes as he said, It's Anshi. What? Anshi? Why did he send you a message? 1,000 Kills, the old man in Taoist robes, and the beautiful woman were shocked and asked in unison. He has already obtained the heaven and earth furnace, and he especially thanked us. The golden-robed man said with a gloomy expression. When 1,000 Kills and the other 2 heard this, they fell into a deathly silence. Chapter 4485. After Zhuoan left the purple chestnut realm, he headed straight for the Void Yama realm without stopping. With the speed of the chariot, it did not take him long to arrive at the Void Yama Divine City in the Void Yama realm and meet Elder Anshi again. When Zhuoan handed the heaven and earth furnace to Elder Anshi, the latter was still in a daze. He knew that Zhuoan was not simple and had some trump cards. However, he did not expect that Zhuan would be able to bring the heaven and earth furnace back so quickly and unscathed, as if he had not experienced a battle at all. Zhuo, how did you do it? Elder Anshi swallowed his saliva and finally could not help but ask out of curiosity. Over the years, he had sent so many experts to the Purple Heaven Sacred Ground, but they had all been defeated and no one had survived. However, Zhuan had been able to bring the heaven and earth furnace back unscathed. I could not be shocked. I was lucky. Because my cultivation was too weak, I did not attract any attention. I took advantage of the moment when they were not paying attention and quickly left the purple chestnut realm. That's why I was able to bring the heaven and earth furnace back so easily, Zhuan said with a smile. Elder Anshi smiled bitterly. He could naturally tell that Zhuan's words were an excuse. Since the latter did not want to say more, he knew better than to ask more. Elder Anshi, what are you doing? Zhuan could not help but ask when he saw Elder Anshi take out a communication jade talisman from his waist and was about to send a message. Send a message to Luo Yiming, 1,000 kills, and the other bastards who are guarding the heaven and earth furnace. Although I did not have the chance to teach them a lesson personally, I have to discuss them. As Elder Anshi sent the message, he looked as if he had vented his anger. Zhuan looked at the old man in front of him speechlessly. Although he felt that Elder Anshi's action was too childish, it was his freedom and he did not need to interfere. After sending the message, Elder Anshi looked relieved. He then looked at Zhuan and said, Zhuo, I promised you before that if you completed my task, I would give you another reward. What do you want? A divine weapon? A divine medicine? Or something else? Zhuan shook his head and said, I don't want any of these. Old man Anshi looked surprised and asked, What do you want then? I hope you can help me 3 times, Senior Anshi. Zhuan said calmly. Old man Anshi raised his eyebrows, thinking that Zhuan's appetite was not small. As one of the outer patrollers of the primordial heavenly Tao Academy, his cultivation had already reached the early stage of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, and his strength was exceedingly high. If someone wanted him to help someone 3 times, he would never agree, unless it was a huge favor. This reward is a bit greedy, Anshi said meaningfully. Zhuan, on the other hand, was not in a hurry. With a flick of his finger, he took out the map fragment hidden in the great world. Senior Anshi, do you recognize this map fragment? Zhuan waved the map fragment in front of Anshi. Is this map fragment the route to the ruins of a certain almighty from the Abyss domain? Anshi asked in surprise. Senior, you are right. This map fragment is equivalent to the key to enter the ruins. I asked you to help me 3 times in preparation for the ruins. As long as you agree, I will give you a place to enter the ruins. The treasures found in the ruins will belong to whoever finds them. Zhuan looked at old man Anshi and curled his lips into a faint smile. Old man Anshi looked pensive. Back then, the map fragments had caused a great uproar in the various superdomains, but the forces that had really obtained the map fragments had basically kept it a secret, so it was impossible to determine who had obtained the map fragments. Anshi was still very interested in the ruins, but because he could not determine who had the map fragment, he had let it go in the end. Now, Zhuan suddenly took out a map fragment, which completely aroused Anshi's interest. Okay, I promise you. Old man Anshi nodded. Next, Zhuan and Anshi made a series of rules and swore to the heavenly Tao one by one to prove that both sides were honest with each other. Because the opening time of the ruins was uncertain, Zhuan and Anshi reached an agreement and left the Void Yama realm. Zhuan, you have to be careful of the Shulong and Shuli families. They still haven't given up on you. You are still safe in the Void Yama Divine City, but once you leave, I'm afraid there is no guarantee. Before leaving, Anshi cautioned Zhuan. Zhuan nodded, a cold light flashing in his eyes. As expected, the Shuli and Shuli families were not willing to give up. He was not strong enough now, but once he had enough strength, he would definitely make these 2 families pay a heavy price. The moment Zhuan left the Void Yama realm, he immediately discovered that several divine warships were quietly following behind him. Zhuowen didn't need to think to know that these divine warships must have been sent by the Shuli and Shuli families. Zhuowen didn't plan to meet force with force because he could feel that these divine warships had come prepared. If he took the initiative to attack, he was afraid that he would attract unnecessary trouble. However, even if I want to leave, I will make you pay a corresponding price. Zhuowen muttered to himself, a cold light flashing in his eyes. He controlled the divine warship to turn around abruptly and charge at full speed toward the divine warships following behind him. He secretly took out the chariot of chariots and sat on it. He turned into a shadow as fast as lightning and disappeared on the spot. After Zhuowen left silently, the divine warships behind him didn't seem to notice and continued to move forward. Look, Zhuowen's divine warships suddenly turn around. Did he discover us? Someone on the divine warships exclaimed. This exclamation was like a sudden clap of thunder, exploding among the crowd. Everyone else also noticed the strange behavior of Zhuowen's divine warship. They saw that Zhuowen's divine warship was moving faster and faster, almost reaching its maximum speed. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of the divine warships. Boom, boom, boom. The divine warships reacted quickly. They all took out the cannons in their divine warships and fired rapidly at Zhuowen's divine warship. Terrifying explosions rang out continuously, but Zhuowen's divine warship was still standing strong. It charged forward and crashed heavily into the divine warships in front of it. Boom! Zhuowen's divine warship exploded in an instant, and the divine warships that it crashed into also exploded one after another. Many of the weaker cultivators in the divine warships were blasted into smithereens by the terrifying explosion. There were only a few strong cultivators who had managed to escape from the divine warship at the first possible moment. This boy is not on the divine warship. I'm afraid that he had already left when the divine warship turned around. The few lucky, surviving cultivators looked at the wreckage of the divine warship floating above the dark ruins, their faces terrifyingly dark. They were naturally not fools. They immediately guessed that Zhuowen had planned this all along. They had been too careless. The dark ruins are filled with danger. We have also lost the divine warship. There is no way we can return to the Void Yama realm. Let's call for help from our family first. One of the middle-aged men said helplessly. The others nodded in agreement. This was the only thing they could do now. Chapter 4486. Zhuowen drove the chariot and soon left the dark ruins and returned to the Kanglan domain. At this moment, the Kanglan domain was thriving and full of vigor. Due to the establishment of efficient teleportation formations in various higher realms, trade and communication continued to deepen, causing the development of the entire Kanglan domain to soar like a geyser. Master, when Zhuowen arrived at the Zishuan district, Ziyang and Luo had been waiting for a long time. Under the guidance of the two women, Zhuowen came to the Kanglan sacred city. Moyan Wushang, Duan Jiping, and the others led a group of high-level officials out of the city to personally welcome him. XDW 8-inch Zhuowen, are you hurt? Moyan Wushang came forward and asked with concern. Zhuowen shook his head and said with a smile, Fortunately, everything went smoothly, as expected of Brother Zhua. I heard how difficult the mission of Old Man Anshi was. You are really amazing to be able to come back unscathed. Duan Jiping gave him a thumbs up and couldn't help but admire him. Zhuowen smiled and chatted with Moyan Wushang, Duan Jiping, Shanling Yun, and other close friends as they walked into the Kanglan Sacred City. In the next few days, Zhuowen looked through the development reports of the various high-level domains and gave the corresponding opinions. After dealing with these trivial matters, Zhuowen let Luoya and Ziyang handle it while he prepared to return to the starry sky. The main purpose of his visit to the 100 domains was to eliminate the threat of the Niwa domain to the Kanglan domain. Now that the Niwa domain had surrendered and become a part of the Kanglan domain, there was no longer any threat. Zhuowen should go back. Zhuowen planned to bring all his friends and family from Panyu Star Land to Kanglan domain. He knew very well that as long as the Kanglan domain was given enough time, it would be able to gain a firm foothold in the 100 domains and not fall. In his opinion, The Kanglan domain was safer than the Kanglan domain and had greater development potential. Zhuowen, I will go back with you. I haven't seen elder sister Qin Shui and everyone else in a long time. Moyan Wushang snuggled up to Zhuowen's side. Her beautiful eyes flickered with longing as she whispered softly, "Yes, I haven't seen them for a long time. I wonder how Qin Shui is doing. What about Big Brother Han Tian? Also, I wonder if Zhuojun and is cultivating properly?" Zhuowen couldn't help but think of his family and friends in the starry sky, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help showing a smile. No matter what kind of achievements he eventually achieved in the 100 domains, the ones who could truly make him feel like home were his family and friends who roamed the starry sky. Only with them could he truly feel like home. Let's go home together," Zhuowen said with a brilliant smile. "Brother Duan, Master, I'll leave the matters here you. Ziyang and Luo, you will cooperate with you." Zhuowen smiled as he looked at Duan Jiping and Shan Lingyun, who had come to send him off. Shan Lingyun pursed her lips and said, "I also want to go to your hometown to take a look." "You won't let me. So boring." Duan Jiping hurriedly smoothed things over and said, "Brother Zhuo, don't worry. With us here, there won't be any problems in the Kanglan domain." "Master, the divine warship is ready." Huangju appeared in front of Zhuowen at an unknown time. She knelt on the ground and said respectfully. Zhuowen nodded. After waving goodbye to Duan Jiping, Shan Lingyun, Ziyang, and the other higher-ups of the Kanglan domain, he stepped into the giant divine warship with Moyan Wushang under the lead of Huangju. Zhuowen didn't plan to ride the chariot of chariot on this trip back to the starry sky. After all, the chariot of chariot was his trump card. He only planned to use it when there was an emergency. Moreover, the space was limited. This was the main reason why Zhuowen didn't use the chariot this time. Moreover, Zhuowen didn't want too many people to know about the chariot. Otherwise, when he encountered a crisis in the future, his enemies might be prepared in advance. This wouldn't benefit Zhuowen at all. The divine ship was very spacious, and there were many rooms inside. For example, there was a lounge, an entertainment room, a chess room, and other rooms with various functions. There was everything one could think of, and it could be said to be extremely luxurious. After Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang entered the divine vessel, they returned to their individual cultivation rooms and began to cultivate in isolation. Although the divine warship had all sorts of entertainment facilities, these were of little value to Zhuowen and the others. Time gradually passed. After an unknown period of time, someone knocked on the door of Zhuowen's cultivation room. He slowly opened his eyes. "Master, we've arrived near the starry sky." Since the spiraling starry sky belonged to the lower realm, its laws were too low. Divine battleships could not enter directly. We'll also need to lower our cultivation base to the heaven-crushing realm. Huangju's respectful voice came from outside the door. Zhuowen's eyes flashed with excitement. He pondered for a moment and said, "Arrange for your subordinates to find a stopping point near the spiraling starry sky. Then, arrange for some of your subordinates to follow me and Wushang into the spiraling starry sky." "Yes, master." Huangju bowed slightly and slowly retreated to arrange the things that Zhuowen had instructed. Zhuowen knocked on Moyan Wushang's door. After explaining the current situation, Moyan Wushang opened the door and walked out. Wushang, your aura has become much more vigorous. Are you going to break through?" Zhuowen looked at the beautiful woman in front of him and felt the surging aura that she was exuding. His eyes couldn't help but light up. Moyan Wushang pursed his lips and smiled. "I've indeed gained something. I'm not far from breaking through to the late ancient starlight realm. However, I need an opportunity to complete the final breakthrough. Let me congratulate you in advance," Zhuowen said with a smile. Moyan Wushang rolled his eyes at Zhuowen and immediately said, "Have we arrived at the spiraling starry sky?" "Yes, it's right in front of the divine ship. With our cultivation, we must suppress our own cultivation to enter the spiraling starry sky," Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Moyan Wushang nodded and followed Zhuowen out of the divine ship. The two of them were suspended in the void. Their eyes fell on the huge, ball-shaped starry sky in front of them. This starry sky was hanging on a branch of the primordial hong tree, like a ripe fruit. There were countless starry sky fruits similar to the spiraling starry sky hanging on the huge primordial hong tree. It looked like a lot of fruits. Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang looked at each other. Their aura was rapidly weakening at a speed visible to the naked eye. It didn't stop until it fell below the heaven-breaking realm. Master, the divine ship has been arranged. Chirue and I will enter the spiraling starry sky with you. Huangju and another coquettish woman knelt on one knee behind Zhuowen. Their auras were rapidly weakening. It didn't stop until it fell below the heaven-breaking realm. Zhuowen glanced at the coquettish woman. She was also one of the representatives of the higher realms. Her strength was extremely good. This time, she had volunteered to come along. Perhaps feeling Zhuowen's gaze, Chirue raised her head slightly and looked directly at Zhuowen. She revealed a sweet smile. There was undisguised passion in her eyes. Zhuowen nodded. However, he didn't care about the unusual emotion in Chirue's eyes. He said lightly, "Let's go." As soon as his voice fell, the four of them turned into four streamers and rushed into the spiraling starry sky. Chapter 4487. Xianmi Heavenly Region, Ryuka Headquarters. Mu Chenxue, Lu Hantian, Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, and the other higher-ups of Ryuka sat in the headquarters with furrowed brows. Suddenly, the door to the hall opened, and a cultivator in armor hurried in. "Is there any news of Junin?" Mu Chenxue's eyes landed on this cultivator, and she hurriedly asked. The armored cultivator knelt on one knee and said in shame, "Mistress, we've contacted almost all the leaders of the major heavenly regions in the galaxy and mobilized all the forces in the galaxy to search, but there's no news of the young master." Feng Xiao turned pale with fright. "How is that possible? We've asked almost all the forces in the galaxy to search, and even an ant can be found. How is it possible that there's no news of my grandson?" Long Xiaotian and Lu Hantian both had solemn expressions, and they were silent. "Please forgive us, lords. We really didn't find any clues about the young master." The armored cultivator hurriedly knelt on the ground and begged in a low voice. "Do you think Junin stepped into the primordial path and went to the 100 domains without permission?" Lu Hantian suddenly asked. Everyone turned pale with fright when they heard this. It's very possible. Ever since when left the galaxy, Junin often said that he would follow in footsteps and go to the 100 domains. His cultivation speed is also extremely fast, and he reached the half-step heaven-crushing stage in just a few decades. And his divine sense is also inherited from and he's already a heaven-crushing stage cultivator. Long Xiaoyan's expression was ugly as he spoke in a low voice. Junin didn't really step into the primordial path behind our backs, right? Feng Xiao said helplessly in her seat. This kid, why is he so disobedient? Stepping into the primordial path is such an important matter, and he didn't even discuss it with us. Mu Chenxue frowned slightly, and she was rather angry. Long Xiaotian smiled bitterly and said, "The wings of a young bird have hardened, and they always want to fly alone. But you can't just leave like this." The 100 outer realms were not roaming the galaxy. That was a higher realm, and shattering heaven-tier elites were invincible in the lower realms galaxy. But when they arrived there, they would be at the bottom. June is unfamiliar with this place. What if something happens to him? Mu Chenxue sighed deeply. She was completely helpless against Jun, and now that this brat has stepped onto the primordial chaos path, and our cultivation hasn't reached the heaven-crushing realm, so we don't have the qualifications to chase after him. Now, all we can do is to pray that this brat is very lucky. Lu Hantian said with a light sigh. Long Xiaotian said, "It would be great if Winner could get in touch with him. He has been away from Caillou Starry Sky for so many years. I think he should have made quite a name for himself in the 100 territories. With him looking after him, June will be much safer in the 100 territories. The 100 domains in the outer realm were too far away from the roaming starry sky, and there was also the primal chaos void between them. No matter how powerful the communication jade talisman was it couldn't transmit messages across such a long distance. In these years, they had almost lost contact with Zhuowen. However, they believed that with Zhuowen's talent and strength, once he entered the 100 territories, he would definitely be able to step onto the path of an elite. This was because Zhuowen had always been like this. They believed in him. "Husband, are you okay?" Mu Qinxue couldn't help but think of the figure that she missed day and night. Her beautiful eyes were filled with longing. "Lords, something bad has happened." Terminus Starry Sky joined forces with Flying Moon Starry Sky and Han Shinkong to open a wormhole into Kaiyu Starry Sky. At this moment, the armies of the three great starry skies are invading our starry sky. The Demon Realm and Primitive Heaven Realm were quickly occupied, and now they are advancing towards our Xianmi Heaven Realm. While everyone was immersed in nostalgia, two people hurriedly came in from outside the hall. They knelt on the ground and said with a terrified expression, "What?" Terminus Starry Sky joined forces with Flying Moon Starry Sky and Han Shinko. Mu Qinxue, Long Xiaodian, and the others were shocked. Terminus Starry Sky was a lower realm starry sky not far from Kaiyu Starry Sky and had some connections with Golden Corner Starry Sky. Originally, after Golden Corner Starry Sky was destroyed by Zhuowen, Terminus Starry Sky also learned of the news and took the initiative to send people to express goodwill. In the beginning, the two great starry skies interacted and gradually understood each other's culture and background. After Terminus Starry Sky learned that Zhuowen had left Kaiyu Starry Sky, they suddenly showed a ferocious face and began to attack. XDW8 Fortunately, Zhuowen left some trump cards in Kaiyu Starry Sky, and in the end, Terminus Starry Sky's invasion failed. However, Terminus Starry Sky did not change and repeatedly invaded Kaiyu Starry Sky's borders, causing Kaiyu Starry Sky to be unstable over the years. Although Kaiyu Starry Sky wanted to counterattack, it was all in vain. Terminus Starry Sky's forces were still above Golden Corner Starry Sky. If it were not for Zhuowen, they would not even be a match for Golden Corner Starry Sky. Now, with the stronger Terminus Starry Sky, they were naturally not a match. Fortunately, Zhuowen's array was extremely powerful and constantly resolved Terminus Starry Sky's invasion. They originally thought that Terminus Starry Sky would not be able to break through Kaiyu Starry Sky and would give up over time. Now it seems that Terminus Starry Sky not only did not give up, but also joined forces with the other two powerful starry skies to secretly set up a wormhole in an attempt to invade Kaiyu Starry Sky again. Now, the wormhole was successfully opened, and the barrier at the border of Kaiyu Starry Sky was no longer there. Terminus Starry Sky, they really don't give up. Gather all the elites of Ryuka and prepare to go out and meet the enemy. Lu Hantian's temper was fiery, and he slammed the armrest and stood up. No, the strength of the three great starry skies is not to be underestimated. The monster domain and great desolate heavenly domain were taken down in a short period of time. This shows how terrifying their armies are. Mu Qinxue was extremely calm as she analyzed. The only thing we can do now is to activate the array my husband left behind and temporarily block the armies of the three great starry skies. Qinxue is right. Our Kaiyu Starry Sky's foundation is still too shallow. Compared to Terminus Starry Sky, we are still too inexperienced. We can't go out so easily. Long Xiaodian also said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Lu Hantian also calmed down and did not mention taking the initiative to meet the enemy. Let's go. The Xianmi Heavenly Domains array is finally going to be put to use. Mu Qinxue waved her sleeve and elegantly stood up. She led the Ryuka high-level members out of the main hall. In the empty and dark starry sky, there were black shadows that were like locusts flying around. If one looked carefully, these black shadows were a powerful army. Behind these armies, there were large divine ships that were following in an orderly manner. The hulls of these ships were emitting dazzling lights of various colors. In front of this large army, there were three figures with the most powerful auras. They were far in front, like three great generals commanding the countless armies behind them. The Xianmi Heavenly Domain is in front of us. It is said that the Ryuka of the Xian Mi heavenly domain is the #1 force in the starry sky. They have many powerful cultivators, so we have to be careful. Among the three of them, a young man in a tight robe looked straight at the Xian Mi heavenly domain, floating in the void as he spoke. The man in the tight robe was the divine master of Terminus Starry Sky, Song Li Hai. He controlled the entire Terminus Starry Sky and was very powerful. He had already reached the half-step heaven-crushing stage. The other two were the divine master of Flying Moon Starry Sky, Xiao Yu, and the divine master of Han Shinkong, Shirt Song. They were not any weaker than Song Li Hai. Chapter 4488. Ryuka's strength mainly comes from Zhuowen. But after Zhuowen stepped on the primordial path and entered the 100 domains, there was no news of him. Without Zhuowen, Ryuka is nothing to be afraid of. Flying Moon Starry Sky's divine master, Xiao Yu said indifferently. Xiao Yu is right. Without Zhuowen, the Long family is indeed much weaker. Moreover, the three starry skies have joined forces. Even if Zhuowen is still wandering the starry sky, I'm afraid he won't be able to reverse the situation. Shirt Song said proudly. Song Li Hai frowned slightly. He felt that the two beside him were too relaxed. The case of Golden Cosmos was right in front of them, and these two still dared to be so careless. This made Song Li Hai very uncomfortable. Look, Xianmi Heavenly Region has already activated the Heavenly Region Array. They are obviously afraid. Shirt Song's gaze fell on Xianmi Heavenly Region and could not help but sneer. Only then did Song Li Hai and Xiao Yu realize that a layer of flowing light had appeared on the surface of Xianmi Heavenly Region. Soldiers, listen to my order. Attack with all your might. Once we occupy Xianmi Heavenly Region, everyone will be rewarded. Shirt Song shouted, and his voice exploded in the void like thunder. The army, which had been moving slowly, quickly flew out and attacked Xianmi Heavenly Region as if they had been injected with chicken blood. One terrifying divine ability attack after another fell like rain, continuously smashing onto the surface of the Xianmi Heavenly Domain, and terrifying explosive sounds continuously rang out. The battle was about to start, and there was no time to delay. In Xianmi Heavenly Region, countless living beings watched nervously as the attacks fell from the sky. When the three galaxies joined forces, Ryuka had already announced the matter to the public. They knew very well that they could only defend to the death. Otherwise, the entire Xianmi Heavenly Region would be destroyed. In the sky above Ryuka's main hall, Mu Chenxue, Lu Hantian, and other Ryuka higher-ups floated in mid-air, watching the three galaxies' joint forces attack Xianmi Heavenly Region. However, their expressions were extremely ugly. The three grand starry skies are too powerful. I'm afraid our grand array won't last long. Mistress, everyone, please evacuate as soon as possible. Several armored subordinates knelt in front of Mu Chenxue, Lu Hantian, and the others, begging them to retreat. Has our Ryuka run out of luck? Mu Chenxue said unwillingly. She knew very well that once the Xianmi Heavenly Domain was breached, with Ryuka's strength, they would not be a match for the combined forces of the three grand starry skies. At that time, it would definitely be a one-sided battle. Kacha! Suddenly, the crisp sound of something shattering resounded throughout the entire Xianmi Heaven Domain. Cracks began to appear on the formation barrier that covered the surface of the Heavenly Domain due to the ferocious attacks. The cracks quickly spread and eventually shattered into countless fine powder. Boom! Boom! One attack after another landed in the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. In an instant, the entire Heavenly Domain became a living hell. Buildings, mountains, rivers, and forests were all reduced to rubble. Countless living beings did not even have the chance to scream. It was as if they had evaporated into thin air and completely disappeared. Quickly enter the Ryuka Grand Hall. Mu Chenxue's expression changed drastically. She waved her sleeves and brought all the higher-ups into the Ryuka Grand Hall. At the same time, the The grand array of the Ryuka Grand Hall was activated to defend against this terrifying wave of attacks. They are so weak. The Xianmi Heavenly Domain is only a little stronger than the primitive Heavenly Domain in the Demon Realm. I thought we would be able to play for a while longer. What a disappointment. Shi Tsang shook his head, his eyes filled with boredom. All right, we are here on official business. Don't kill all the living beings in the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. These are all good slaves. Xiao Yu frowned. Got it. Let's go to the Ryuka Grand Hall. As long as we uproot the Ryuka Grand Hall, the Xianmi Heavenly Domain will be ours. Shi Tsang shrugged. With that, Song Lihai, Shi Tsang, and Xiao Yu ordered the army to stop attacking and headed towards the Ryuka Grand Hall in the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. The living beings in the Xianmi Heavenly Domain had already lost their will to fight back. They could only watch as the 3 galactic allied forces barged into their territory. In the blink of an eye, the 3 galactic allied forces surrounded the Ryuka Grand Hall. Everyone in the Ryuka Grand Hall, if you don't want to die, you'd better surrender. Song Lihai stood outside the Grand Hall and shouted as he looked at the powerful array defense in front of him. However, there was no response from the Ryuka Grand Hall. It was eerily quiet. Song Lihai's face darkened as he continued. If you don't surrender, don't blame us for being rude. With the strength of our allied forces, it is not difficult to destroy the array outside your Grand Hall. The Ryuka Grand Hall was still very quiet. Oomph. In that case, we can only use force. Song Lihai laughed coldly as he gave Shi Tsang and Xiao Yu a look and gave the order at the same time. The 3-star coalition forces once again launched a terrifying offensive. Multicolored energy burst out one after another and heavily bombarded the Long family's main hall. The terrifying power caused an unprecedented earthquake to occur within a radius of several 100 million kilometers. The Ryuka Grand Hall was like a small boat in the middle of a storm. It looked like it could capsize at any time. Inside the Ryuka Grand Hall, Mu Qinxue, Long Xiaodian, Lu Hantian, and the others looked gloomy. Their faces were filled with worry and helplessness. They knew very well that once the array around the Ryuka Grand Hall was breached, they would have to fight to the death. Stop! Suddenly, a loud voice resounded from outside the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. It was as if countless thunderbolts were exploding in the void. It was deafening and made one's scalp tingle. In front of the allied forces, Song Lihai, Shi Tsang, and Xiao Yu, who were originally calm, could not help but look at the source of the voice. There they saw 4 figures rushing over quickly. The person in the lead was a young man in a black robe. At this moment, his eyes were filled with strong, killing intent. These 4 people were Zhuoan, Emo Yin Wushang, Huang Ju, and Qi Rue, who had just arrived. Song Lihai raised his hand, and the allied forces' attack immediately stopped. He then looked up at the 4 people and asked indifferently, "Who are you?" However, as soon as Song Lihai finished speaking, he saw Zhuan's appearance, and his face changed drastically. "Brother Tsang, what's wrong?" Shi Tsang and Xiao Yu naturally saw the unnatural expression on Song Lihai's face and could not help but ask in surprise. It's Zhuoan. He's back," Song Lihai said with a stiff expression. He's Zhuoan? This kid actually returned to the lower realm from the 100 territories. Could it be that he can't survive there anymore? Shi Tsang frowned slightly. We don't have to be afraid. There are only 4 people. We have 1,000,000 allied forces. No matter how strong this kid is, he's no match for us. Xiao Yu said indifferently. How dare you attack the Ryuka? In the blink of an eye, Zhuoan appeared in the sky above the Ryuka palace and looked down at Song Lihai and the other 2. Conquering in the starry sky is a common thing. As the saying goes, the winner is king and the loser is a bandit. The winner is king. If we destroy the Ryuka, the allied forces will naturally be under our control. Why don't we attack? Shi Tsang sneered. Now, I'll give you a chance to redeem yourselves. Kill yourselves in front of me, and I'll let the allied forces behind you live. Otherwise, all of you will die. Zhuoan shouted murderously. As soon as these words came out, Song Lihai and the other 2's faces turned cold. Let them kill themselves? What a joke. What if we say no? Shirtsong said coldly. Zhuowen suddenly calmed down. He looked at Huang Ju and Chirue behind him and said indifferently, I'll give you 10 breaths of time to wipe them out. Huang Ju and Chirue hurriedly knelt on the ground and answered respectfully. Song Lihai and the other two sneered. Wiping them out in 10 breaths of time was really a pipe dream. But soon, they could no longer laugh because Huang Ju and Chirue had already made their move. Chapter 4489. Boom, boom. Huang Ju and Chi Rue were like two demon gods, rushing into the three grand starry sky coalition forces as if they were invincible. The allied forces, which were densely packed like locusts in the void, quickly fell like straws being cut. They were constantly being harvested without any resistance. Although Huang Ju and Chirue's cultivation had been suppressed to below the heaven-crushing stage, they were supreme masters of the great carefree stage after all. Their cultivation was suppressed, but their divine powers and secret techniques were far superior to any masters of the lower worlds. Once they were used, it was enough to crush all the cultivators of the lower worlds. What? How can the two of them be so powerful? Their divine powers and secret techniques are so powerful. Seeing the allied forces being defeated like a landslide, Song Lihai's pupils shrank into needles, revealing a look of disbelief. Humph! The aura of these two is only around the half-step heaven-crushing stage. Let's go and kill them together. Shirtsong's eyes were cold. He and Xiaoyu looked at each other, then turned into two streams of light, rushing toward Huang, Ju, and Chirue. As soon as Shirtsong and Xiaoyu attacked, they went all out and used their most powerful divine powers. Divine powers. Earth Treasury Divine Net. Shirtsong floated in the air, his hands forming a seal, and a terrifying divine power poured out, turning into an incomparably huge god phantom behind him. Boom! The god shadow squinted his eyes. Suddenly, with 1,000 pounds fall, he swiftly and violently pressed down on Huang Ju. Divine powers. 1,000 moon illusory kill. Xiaoyu pressed her palm down, and a terrifying divine power swept out, transforming into countless moons around her. These moons seemed to contain terrifying killing intent, and they spun rapidly, rushing toward Chue, who was surrounded in the center. You're dead. Shirtsong and Xiaoyu looked at Huang Ju and Chirue, who were drowned by their most powerful divine powers, and there was a gloating look in their eyes. Boom! The two divine abilities exploded with a loud bang, and the aftermath swept out in all directions like water ripples. The void exploded one after another, and terrifying black holes appeared one after another. Is this the extent of your strength? It's too weak. Suddenly, at the core of the explosion, an indifferent voice sounded. Shirtsong and Xiaoyu, who were gloating, narrowed their eyes as they looked at the two figures slowly appearing below in disbelief. These two figures were Huang Ju and Chirue. Shirtsong and Xiaoyu clearly found that the two people in front of them were completely unharmed. In other words, their divine powers couldn't cause any damage to the two. Why? You're obviously also half-step heaven-crushing stage. So why can't our attacks, you two? Xiaoyu couldn't help but take a few steps back. Her eyes were filled with fear. Fear! Two mere ants want to be mentioned in the same breath as us? Truly laughable to the extreme. Chirue, Chien Yu Chu. Shirtsong and Xiaoyu were completely unable to dodge in time. They were penetrated by this terrifying finger force, and their bodies and souls exploded apart. They were deader than dead. In the instant that Shirtsong and Xiaoyu were easily killed by Chirue, the entire void fell into complete silence. The three allied forces, who had already been defeated, became even more terrified and began to flee in all directions. To them, the two people in front of them were simply demons from hell. They were too terrifying and powerful, and they were completely no match for them. Want to escape? Not so easy. Master will annihilate all of you. Chirue's beautiful eyes were filled with coldness, and she chased after the fleeing allied forces like a bolt of lightning. Huangju didn't want to be left behind, and he went in from another direction, completely sealing off the allied forces' path of retreat. Shrill cries of agony rang out continuously in the void. Huangju and Chirui were like two death gods from hell, constantly reaping the lives of the allied forces. 10 breaths of time passed in the blink of an eye, and Huangju and Chirui returned and knelt in front of Zhuan. Master, we've fortunately succeeded. Huangju and Chirui's eyes were full of respect, and they said slowly in a low voice. Zhuan nodded, then immediately turned to look at Song Lihai, who had already been scared silly, and said indifferently, "You're the only one left. Tell me, how do you want to die?" Plop. Song Lihai knelt on the ground, trembling all over, and his face became even more ferocious and distorted. "Please, please spare my life, sir." Song Lihai's voice was sharp and ear-piercing. He kept kowtowing to Zhuan, hoping that Zhuan would spare his life. "From the moment you invaded the starry sky, did you think you could still live?" Zhuan said calmly. Song Lihai still wanted to speak, but a terrifying force rushed over and pierced his head and even his body. Song Lihai raised his head with difficulty and saw Zhuan slowly put away his right hand, and his eyes never looked at him from beginning to end. "I can't accept this." After Song Lihai struggled to say these words, his whole body felt like it was on fire, and his body and soul were burned to ashes. He couldn't be more dead. After destroying Song Lihai, Zhuan's gaze fell on the Ryuka hall below, and his eyes became gentle and nostalgic. At this moment, the array of the Ryuka hall had already been activated. Mu Chenxue, Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, Lu Hantian, and the other Ryuka higher-ups rushed out. Their faces were first puzzled, then shocked, and finally turned into joy. "Husband!" Mu Chenxue rushed up and hugged Zhuan tightly, and her beautiful eyes were already filled with tears. You're finally back." Long Xiaotian and Feng Xiao followed behind, and their eyes were already filled with tears as they looked at Zhuan, and their bodies trembled with excitement. Lu Hantian even went forward and patted Zhuan's shoulder, and laughed, and kept rubbing his eyes to prevent tears from flowing. Zhuan's grandfather, uncle, and other relatives and friends also came forward to greet Zhuan. Everyone was extremely excited. Zhuan was the symbol of their Ryuka and the pillar of their Ryuka. During the time when Zhuan was not around, although Ryuka was still the strongest force in the galaxy, they had gradually lost their power. Now, they were almost wiped out by the 3 galactic allied forces. Fortunately, Zhuan had rushed back, and everyone in Ryuka seemed to have found their backbone, and their hearts were inexplicably more stable. "Chen Shui, it's been hard on you these past few years." Zhuan gently stroked Mu Chenxue's waterfall-like hair, and said with a gentle look in his eyes. He was very clear that all the big and small matters in Ryuka had been managed by Mu Chenxue, and all the pressure had been borne by the latter. These past few years, Mu Chenxue must have had a hard time. "It's not hard. Husband, for you, it's not hard at all." Mu Chenxue wiped her tears and revealed a smile. "Wu Shang, is that you?" Mu Chenxue's beautiful eyes fell onto Moyin Wu Shang standing beside Zhuan, and her eyes revealed a look of pleasant surprise. Big sister Chen Shui. Moyin Wu Shang standing beside Zhuan was also emotional, and his eyes were filled with tears as he called out to Mu Chenxue. "Wu Shang, you're back." Mu Chenxue quickly went forward to hug Moyin Wu Shang. Chapter 4490. "Wu Shang, welcome home. Elder sister has been waiting for you for a long time. Do you know?" Mu Chenxue said softly. Moyin Wu Shang also sobbed and said softly, "Elder sister Chen Shui, I miss you too. I've thought about it for a long time. I've always wanted to see you. I'm really sorry that I only came back now." Lu Hantian slapped Zhuan and said, "Kid, not bad. You finally made some progress after going to the 100 territories. You even brought Wu Shang back." Zhuan said with a bitter smile, "Big brother Hantian, one of my goals in going to the 100 territories was to find Moyin Wu Shang. If I didn't bring her back, how could I have the face to see you?" "Ha, that's right. Speaking of which, how is the new R realm?" Our universe is constantly threatened by the Nuar realm. Do you have the confidence to deal with the Nuar realm? Lu Hantian suddenly asked. Feng Xiao, Long Xiaotian, and the others also came forward with nervous expressions. Although they didn't know anything about the Nuwa clan, they knew that the Nuwa clan must be an extremely powerful force in the 100 territories. After all, the Nuwa clan sent Venerable Hong Rue, who was a terrifying powerhouse of the 8 transformation stage, and the Nuwa clan's elder was suspected to be a great carefree stage powerhouse. It could be said that if the Nuwa clan wanted to crush them to death, it would be a piece of cake. Zhuowen said with a faint smile. The Nuwa clan is no longer a threat. What do you mean? Lu Hantian and the others asked in confusion. Zhuowen glanced at Huang Ju, who was standing respectfully not far away, and said, This is the Nuwa clan's elder, Huang Ju. Now, he's my servant. Hearing Zhuowen mention him, Huang Ju hurriedly came forward and said, Nuwa clan's elder, Huang Ju greets everyone. Lu Hantian, Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, and the others all gasped in shock. They were not blind. When Huang Ju and Chirue joined forces to easily destroy the 3 Grand Starry Sky coalition forces, they understood that these two should be the strongest masters of the 100 territories outside the Outer Realm. However, they had never imagined that one of them would actually be a Grand Exalt of the Nuwa clan. They knew that the leader of the Nuwa clan was at the great carefree level. That level of cultivation was a height that was far beyond their reach. Now, such a powerhouse had actually become Zhuowen's servant. There's no need for such formalities. Long Xiaotian and the others had uneasy expressions. This was the first time they had seen an expert of the great carefree realm, so they were inevitably nervous. Are you really the leader of the Nuwa clan? Then what realm are you at? Lu Hantian asked curiously. Huang Ju was meticulous and said in a low voice, My cultivation is only at the reverse ancient starlight level. Hiss! Everyone gasped in shock. Although they were only creatures of the lower realm, because Zhuowen had told them about the division of realms, they also knew the specific division of the Great Carefree Realm. The Great Carefree Realm above the Heaven-Breaking Realm was divided into 5 major realms, namely the Great Calamity of Universe, Cosmic Form, Reverse Ancient Starlight, Law Embodiment of Heaven and Earth, and all techniques to one. This Huang Ju in front of them was indeed extraordinary. He was actually an expert of the Reverse Ancient Starlight Realm. And such a powerful Huang Ju actually submitted to Zhuowen. From this, it could be seen that Zhuowen could only be stronger. Zhuowen, how many years has it been since we last met? You have actually become so powerful, as expected of you. Lu Hantian said with emotion. Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, and the others laughed from the bottom of their hearts. Zhuowen was the pillar of their Ryuka. The stronger Zhuowen was, the happier they were. Let's go. Let's talk inside. Zhuowen saw that more and more Ryuka people were gathering and said to Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, and the others. Next, Zhuowen and the others were invited into the main hall by the higher-ups of the Ryuka. Some of the higher-ups who were not friends with Zhuowen were dismissed. A group of former acquaintances poured wine and reminisced in the main hall. Zhuowen, Mu Qinxue, Long Xiaotian, and other close friends talked about all kinds of things that had happened in the 100 territories over the years, as well as all kinds of difficulties along the way. After hearing this, everyone could not help but sigh. Although Zhuowen was now infinitely powerful, in fact, all of this was exchanged for with his life. As the wine was drunk, Moyan Wushang was also affected. She softly recounted her experiences in the 100 territories over the years, which also caused a lot of sighs. Whether it was Zhuowen or Moyan Wushang, over the years, they had experienced a lot and suffered a lot. Later, Lu Hantian deliberately changed the topic to not let the topic become too heavy. In an instant, the atmosphere became relaxed and happy again. All right, where is Junin? Since I came back, why haven't I seen him? Zhuowen took a sip of wine and looked around. When he did not see Zhuo Junin, he was rather surprised and asked. Zhuowen knew Zhuo Junin's character best. If this kid knew that he was back, he would definitely be the first to pester him. But now, he did not see Zhuo Junin at all. The moment this was said, the atmosphere in the main hall became quiet. Did something happen? Zhuo naturally saw the hesitant expressions on everyone's faces, and his expression immediately became solemn. Mu Qinshue's beautiful eyes were filled with apology as she said, "Husband, it's all my fault. I did not manage Junin well. He went in the Hongming path and went to the 100 territories outside the realm. We found out too late." Zhuowen's face changed slightly. He did not expect that Zhuo Junin would be so bold as to enter the Hongmeng path alone. He still remembered that when he stepped into the Hongmeng path, he had almost died. At that time, there were giant beasts in the chaotic void that attacked and destroyed many of the Hongmeng paths. If it were not for the experts from the 100 territories outside the realm, he would have died in the Hongmeng path. Although the Hongmeng path had been repaired after so many years, it was still extremely dangerous. Why is this kid so impulsive? Zhuowen frowned. At this point, Zhuowen looked at Huangju and Chirue and said, "The two of you immediately return to the 100 territories outside the realm. You must find my son, Zhuo Junin." Huangju and Chirue looked at each other and hesitated. "You don't have to worry about my safety. Not to mention the lower realm. Even in 100 territories outside the realm, there are not many people who can kill me. Go quickly." Zhuowen's eyes were cold, and his body emitted a powerful and dignified aura. "Yes," Huangju and Chirue hurriedly said. "The two of you, this is Junin's portrait and aura. Please be sure to find my son." Mu Qinshu took out a scroll and handed it to Huangju and Chirue. "Mistress, don't worry. We will definitely not disappoint you." Huangju and Chirue accepted the order and left. "Father, Mother, Chun Shui, don't worry. Huangju and Chirue will not make any mistakes. Moreover, I have established a force in the 100 territories outside the realm. It shouldn't be too difficult to find Junin." After Huangju and Chirue left, Zhuowen patted Mu Qinshue's shoulder and looked at Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, and the others to comfort them. Did you come down this time to take us to the 100 territories outside the realm?" Long Xiaotian asked with bright eyes. "Father, you're right. There are too many restrictions in the lower realm after all. I see that most of you have encountered a bottleneck. It is extremely difficult for you to go further. If you want to continue to become stronger, you can only enter the 100 territories outside the realm." Zhuowen said. Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, Mu Qinshu, and the others looked at each other and made their choice without hesitation. They chose to follow Zhuowen. Chapter 4491. Next, Zhuowen asked Lu Hantian and Long Xiaotian to lead the Ryuka army to the Demon Realm and the Void Celestial Realm respectively. The Demon Realm and the Void Celestial Realm were the first to be conquered by the Three Galaxies Alliance. Now, they were under the control of the Three Galaxies Alliance. With the strength of Lu Hantian and Long Xiaotian, as well as the help of Green Hat and Purple Star Lord, they quickly conquered the Demon Realm and the Void Celestial Realm. The representative of the Demon Realm, Dong Wang Tai, and the representative of the Void Celestial Realm, the Black King, followed the Ryuka army to the Ryuka Palace to thank Zhuowen for saving them. Zhuowen personally received the two of them and asked them if they were willing to follow him to the 100 domains and join his forces in the Kanglan domain. Dong Wang Tai and the Black King hesitated for a moment before rejecting Zhuowen. They had stayed in Wandering Starry Sky for a long time, and with their friends and family here, they didn't want to leave. Zhuowen did not force the two of them. After catching up, the two of them left. Time flew by. A month passed in the blink of an eye, and the Ryuka army was ready. This time, the entire Long family was migrating. They had brought along the most elite members of the Long family. A small number of the Ryuka army stayed in the galaxy and continued to manage the Xianmi, Celestial Realm, and maintain order. This divine ship is huge. This is the first time I have seen such a huge divine ship. When the members of the Long family, under Zhuo Wen's lead, arrived at the stop of the divine warship, they all sighed in amazement. This is a divine ship. In the 100 domains, it is much more advanced than a divine ship. Moyan Wushang introduced with a smile. As he spoke, Moyan Wushang could not help but look at Zhuowen. No wonder the latter had chosen such a huge divine ship. It was for the migration of the Ryuka race. All right, everyone enter the divine ship in order. Do not cut in line. Lu Han Tian, Long Shao Tian, and the others immediately began to organize their clansmen to enter the divine warship in an orderly manner. When the Ryuka entered the ship, they were even more shocked. There were many rooms in the divine ship, and there were also all kinds of halls for entertainment. It was like a small world. The Ryuka excitedly chose their respective rooms. Many of the younger ones even entered the entertainment hall in groups of 3 to 5 and started to play on their own. When all the Ryuka had entered the ship, Lu Han Tian and the rest discovered that there were still many empty rooms. They couldn't help but sigh at the grandeur and vastness of this divine ship. They were far from being able to create such a high-grade flying tool in the starry skies. This made them look forward to the 100 outer realms even more. Zhuowen led the Ryuka officials to the top floor of the divine vessel. After arranging rooms for everyone, he ordered the divine vessel to set sail. The entire divine warship trembled slightly. Then, it shot forward, heading into the unknown darkness ahead. Rumble. However, not long after the divine warship flew out, a strange roar exploded in the void around it. Then, a terrifying gust of wind swept over and blew against the divine vessel, causing it to shake violently. What's going on? Why is the divine vessel shaking so violently? Everyone in the divine vessel was shocked. They had no idea what was going on. On the top floor of the divine vessel, Lu Han Tian, Long Shao Tian, Feng Xiao, and the rest of the Ryuka officials were also shocked. They all looked at Zhuowen. Zhuowen's face was gloomy. With a wave of his sleeve, the scene behind the divine vessel appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Behind the divine vessel, there was a gigantic purple-gold divine tree that seemed to have no end. The branches of this gigantic tree were densely packed, and there were many starry sky fruits growing on each branch. Although this was the first time they had seen the starry sky fruits, they had heard about them from Zhuowen. Hence, they weren't too shocked. Look, that's the branch where the starry sky hover is. What's that? Suddenly, Lu Han Tian pointed at the branch behind the divine vessel. There were many starry sky fruits hanging on this branch, and the starry sky hover was among them. However, on this branch, there was an incomparably huge pitch-black hand that reached towards the branch and suddenly grabbed a starry sky fruit on the branch. Crack! The sound of the starry sky fruit being pulled off the branch was ear-piercing in the chaotic void. Everyone heard it clearly. No way. A hand plucked the starry sky fruit. That must be the starry sky fruit. Long Xiaoyan's eyes widened as he looked at the shocking scene behind him in disbelief. Feng Xiao, Mu Qinxue, and the others, and even Zhuowen and Moyan Wushang, were all shocked. The starry sky fruit was huge and had nurtured countless living beings. However, in front of this hand, they were as small as a fruit. Crack! 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 The gigantic hand skillfully plucked the starry sky fruits on the branch. However, when the starry sky hover was held in the palm of this gigantic hand, everyone's heart sank. No, that's our starry sky. Everyone shouted in their hearts as they felt an indescribable heartache. Crack! The crisp, tearing sound reverberated in everyone's ears. Under everyone's sorrowful gazes, the starry sky hover was finally plucked by the gigantic hand and thrown into a place in the void where they couldn't see it. The gigantic hand was still plucking the starry sky fruits, ignoring the divine vessel that had escaped. The divine vessel was too small for the owner of the gigantic hand. Even if he had discovered it, he wouldn't have cared. Husband, what is that thing? It's so powerful. Mu Qinxue snuggled in Zhuowen's arms as her delicate body trembled in fear. Not only Mu Qinxue, but everyone, including Moyan Wushang, felt a chill in their hearts. Fear spread in everyone's hearts like a poison. It was the fear of facing a high-level creature that was far more powerful than them. They felt powerless. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with horror as his face darkened. He raised his hand with difficulty and hugged Mu Qinxue tightly in his arms. That's an existence from the ancient star system. It's not something we can fight against. Zhuowen's low voice reverberated nearby. His eyes were still filled with fear and unwillingness. He had long heard that when the creatures of the ancient star system held important meetings, they would come to the ancient Hongmeng tree to pluck the starry sky fruits and use them as delicacies. Back then, he had only been skeptical and was amazed by the strength of the creatures of the ancient star system. Although the lower domain's starry sky couldn't be compared to the 100 outer domains, the top experts of the 100 outer domains might not be able to easily pluck the lower domain's starry sky fruits as delicacies. Now, he had seen it for himself. He saw the creatures of the ancient star system plucking the starry sky fruits, including the starry sky hover that had given birth to him. Chapter 4492. If I had been a step later, Zhuowen shuddered as he thought of this. In front of such an existence, Zhuowen was as small as an ant and had no power to resist. He knew very well that if he had faced that giant hand head-on, his body and soul would have been destroyed. This is the tragedy of a weakling. In front of the strong, the weak will always be robbed, regardless of whether it is life or freedom. Zhuowen stared silently at the giant hand in the distance, as well as the stars that were constantly being plucked away. He felt a sense of sorrow in his heart. That is why I must become stronger. I must become strong enough. Zhuowen took a deep breath and clenched his fists tightly. His eyes shone with a fierce light. He took one last look at the ancient star hanging at the very top and made up his mind. Then, he steered the divine warship and quickly left this place. The impact this time was extremely great for the Ryuka. The Ryuka, who had relaxed after entering the divine warship, were now filled with fighting spirit. They began to work hard and cultivate diligently. The upper echelons of the Ryuka were also affected. They also secretly made up their minds to become stronger. Zhuowen naturally saw the changes in the Ryuka and nodded to himself. A month later, the divine warship finally arrived at the Kanglan domain of the 100 domains. Outside the Kanglan holy city, Duan Jiping, Shanlingyun, Ziyang, and Luo had already been waiting outside the city for a long time. When Zhuowen led the Ryuka out of the divine warship, the upper echelons of the Kanglan domain all knelt on the ground and respectfully welcomed Zhuowen's return. What a powerful aura! Are these people all at the great carefree realm? Long Xiaodian, Lu Han Tian, and the rest of the Ryuka immediately felt the terrifying aura from the upper echelons of the Kanglan domain. Although these people did not deliberately release their auras, the faint aura that they exuded at this moment was enough to make the Ryuka feel suffocated. What shocked the Ryuka even more was that the laws of the 100 domains were extremely powerful. Many of the Ryuka were almost unable to withstand the energy and laws of this place and died on the spot. If Zhuowen hadn't used his own strength to protect them in time, most of the Long family members would have died. When Zhuowen saw the sorry state of the Ryuka, he could not help but shake his head. Looks like he needs to make the Ryuka stronger as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be difficult to even survive in the 100 domains. At the very least, let the majority reach the heaven-crushing stage first. Zhuowen thought to himself. Get up, Zhuowen said to the people outside the city. Crash! Everyone stood up and looked curiously at the group of Ryuka behind Zhuowen. They had already been informed that Zhuowen would be bringing his people to the Kanglan domain. However, they did not expect Zhuowen's people to be so weak. They were all in the heaven-breaking realm. With this kind of cultivation, they would not be able to survive for long in the 100 domains. Duan Jiping's expression was normal. He knew from the beginning that Zhuowen came from the lower realms. Therefore, Zhuowen's people were naturally from the lower realms. It was normal for them to be weak. Brother Zhuo, leave your clansmen to me to teach. I will take them to the starlight realm of the 7 emotions, 6 desires, Saint Lord, and make them stronger as soon as possible. Duan Jiping walked forward and whispered to Zhuowen. Zhuowen cupped his fists and said to Duan Jiping, "Brother Duan, I will have to trouble you. No need to be so polite. It is all thanks to you that I am able to achieve what I have today. I am more than happy to be of service to you." Duan Jiping laughed. "Let's talk about the training later. Let's enter the Kanglan Holy Hall first," Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Duan Jiping nodded and escorted Zhuowen and the Ryuka people into the Kanglan Holy Hall. Duan Jiping and Shanling Yun brought the Ryuka people into the Starlight Realm of the Seven Emotions, Six Desires, Saint Lord, for special training under Zhuowen's instructions. The Ryuka higher-ups, including Long Xiaodian, Lu Hantian, Feng Xiao, Mu Qinxue, Zhuo Xiangding, and Zhuowen's friends and family, were handed over to Moyan Wushang for training. After making arrangements for all of the Long family's clansmen, Zhuowen finally relaxed slightly. Have Huang Ju and Chirue returned? Zhuowen looked at Ziyang and Lu Oya, who were standing respectfully in front of him, and asked in a low voice. Ziyang and Lu Oya looked at each other and hesitated for a moment before saying, "Huang Ju and Chirue returned a few days ago." However, as soon as they returned, they said that they were looking for young Master Zhuo Junin and left in a hurry. Until now, we have not contacted them. Is there any news from Junin? Zhuowen continued to ask. Ziyang hurriedly said, "Master, we have already sent the order to mobilize all forces in the Kanglan domain to look for young Master. We have not received any concrete news yet." Zhuowen nodded. He was not surprised. The 100 domains were too vast. Zhuo Junin had entered the 100 domains through the Hongming path at random. It was impossible to find him in such a short time. Suddenly, the communication jade at Zhuowen's waist lit up. He took off the communication jade and saw that it was Chirue who had sent him a message. His eyes lit up. When he finished reading the message, the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. "Ziyang, Lu Oya, withdraw all the people who are looking for Junin," Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Ziyang and Lu Oya immediately understood that Huang Ju and Chirue should have found Zhuo Junin. After Ziyang and Lu Oya left, Zhuowen was the only one left in the empty hall. "Junin, this boy, is really..." Zhuowen sat on the throne. Thinking of the message sent by Chirue, he could not help but shake his head and laugh. Huang Ju and Chirue had indeed found Zhuo Junin, but they did not disturb him. Instead, they immediately sent a message to Zhuowen to ask for his opinion. Through Chirue's report, Zhuowen also learned of Zhuo Junin's current location. He was in the Qihuan domain. The Qihuan domain was a low-level domain located at the northwest edge of the 100 domains. It was an extremely insignificant domain. From Chirue's report, Zhuo Junin had joined the Qihuan clan. The reason was very simple. It was because Zhuo Junin had fallen in love with the Qihuan clan's patriarch's daughter. In order to approach the patriarch's daughter, Zhuo Junin had joined the Qihuan clan without any hesitation. His goal was to approach the patriarch's daughter. This brat has really grown up. Zhuowen rubbed his temples. If Chen Xuan knew that this brat Zhuo Junin had entered the 100 domains to chase a girl, it was unknown what she would think. Zhuowen thought about it and decided not to tell Chen Shui about this for now. "I'll personally take a look. If both sides are in love, then I'll directly ask the Qihuan clan for her hand in marriage." Zhuowen stood up. He first sent a message to Huang Ju and Chirue, telling them to look after Zhuo Junin and not disturb him. He then left the Canglan domain alone and headed towards the Qihuan domain. After being teleported several times, Zhuowen finally arrived at the border of the Qihuan domain. When Zhuowen entered the Qihuan Divine City, Chirue and Huang Ju quickly came out to greet him. "Master, for such a small matter to trouble you personally, it really is our fault," Huang Ju said in a nervous voice. Zhuowen waved his hand and said with a smile, "It's not related to you. I'm just curious about this brat Junin situation." The three of them entered the most luxurious inn in the Divine City. Chirue and Huang Ju reported Zhuo Junin's situation over the past few days to Zhuowen. Chapter 4493. After listening to Huang Ju and Chirue's report, Zhuowen finally understood Zhuo Jun's situation. It turned out that when Zhuo Jun first entered the 100 Regions, he was betrayed by a villain and almost died. Fortunately, Zhuo Jun and met the daughter of the Qi Huan clan's patriarch, Qi Lin, and was saved by the latter. Qi Lin was kind by nature, and she helped Zhuo Jun to the end and healed his injuries. After Zhuo Jun recovered, Qi Lin's team placed him in South Willow City of the Qi Huan realm. At first, Zhuo Jun did not know Qi Lin's identity. After asking around, he found out that Qi Lin was the daughter of the Qi Huan clan's patriarch and had a noble status. In order to repay the favor, Zhuo Jun resolutely joined the Qi Huan clan and became a rising genius of the Qi Huan clan. Unrequited love, Zhuo muttered to himself. According to Huangju, Qi Lin already had someone in her heart. The person she liked was the #1 genius of the Burning Moon realm, Yu Hui. It was said that the Burning Moon realm and the Qi Huan realm had intentions of forming a marriage alliance. Master, you don't know. Although the Burning Moon realm is a low-level realm, its strength and foundation are extremely deep. It is a low-level realm that is infinitely close to a medium-level realm. At this point, Huangju hesitated slightly and did not continue. Zhuowen caught the hesitation in Huangju's eyes and said indifferently, "If you have something to say, just say it. You don't have to hide it from me." "Yes." Huangju nodded and then looked at Chirui and said, "Chirui was the one who found out about the Burning Moon realm, so let her say it." Zhuowen's gaze fell on Chirui and found that the latter was staring at him with a fanatical gaze. "Master, according to the information I found, the Burning Moon realm has always had the ambition to become a medium-level realm. Moreover, the Patriarch of the Burning Moon realm has secretly broken through to the Cosmic Avatar realm and is only a large territory away from becoming a medium-level realm." Chirui stared unblinkingly at Zhuowen and said fanatically. Zhuowen frowned slightly and said, "Oh, are you saying that the marriage between the Burning Moon realm and the Qi Huan realm has other motives?" Chirui nodded and said, "The Burning Moon realm's patriarch is an ambitious man. He has never cared about people or forces weaker than him, and it is even more impossible for him to form a marriage alliance with a force weaker than the Burning Moon realm like the Qi Huan realm. This is not beneficial to him at all." Zhuo nodded. Chirui's analysis was very reasonable. Judging from their abnormal behavior, it was clear that the Burning Moon realm was after something big. "Master, should we warn the Burning Moon clan to give up on the marriage alliance and create an opportunity for the young master?" Huangju said hurriedly. Zhuo shook his head and said no. "We don't need to do anything. We just need to wait and see." Huangju and Chirui looked surprised. They didn't expect that Zhuowen would actually make a decision to wait and see. "Just remember to protect June and in secret," Zhuowen said indifferently. Huangju and Chirui didn't understand Zhuowen's actions, but they didn't dare to disobey Zhuowen's orders. They nodded and left. After Huangju and Chirui left, Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a sharp light. With his current strength and prestige, he could destroy the Burning Moon realm with a flick of his finger. However, he didn't do that. Instead, he allowed the Burning Moon realm scheme to be carried out and didn't interfere with Zhuo Jun's matters. He knew very well that if a baby eagle wanted to spread its wings and fly, it had to rely on its own strength. If a baby eagle was blindly protected by a male eagle, it would never be able to achieve anything. In Zhuowen's eyes, Zhuo Jun was that baby eagle. There were some things that Zhuo Jun had to experience personally. Only then could he truly grow into an eagle that soared to the highest heavens. "Junin, this is only your first lesson in the 100 Outer Domains. I hope you can learn well." Zhuowen muttered to himself as he stood in front of the window of his room with his hands behind his back. He looked at the core area of Qi Huan Divine City. In the inner city of Qi Huan Divine City, in a courtyard outside a side hall, a young man's figure was like lightning as he sparred with a beautiful woman. The two men's movements were vigorous, leaping like rabbits and swooping like falcons. They turned into numerous afterimages in the air, and it was impossible to see them clearly. All of a sudden, the two of them stopped. The beautiful woman revealed a bitter smile on her face. Junin, your talent is really strong. Half a month ago, you weren't as good as me, but now your movement technique isn't any weaker than mine. The beautiful woman looked at the young man opposite her and smiled as she rubbed her shoulders. Junin rubbed his nose, his cheeks slightly red as he said, Qi Lin, you don't have to praise me like that. I'll be proud. Actually, it's mainly because my cultivation has broken through to the fetal god change realm. That's why my movement technique has become so fast. The man and woman in front of him were Qi Lin and Zhuojun, and ever since Zhuojun joined the Qi Huan clan, he quickly became a rising star and was greatly appreciated by the Qi Huan clan's patriarch. This also made it easy for Zhuojun to get close to Qi Lin, and the two became friends. Qi Lin, I heard that you're going to marry Yu Wuhui. Zhuojun looked at Qi Lin and asked nervously. Qi Lin was stunned, and then her beautiful eyes revealed a longing look as she said, Yes. Junin, you don't know, but I've always admired Yu Wuhui since I was young. I've never thought that I would be able to marry my idol. However, I didn't expect that the Burning Moon clan would take the initiative to marry our Qi Huan clan. To me, this is a pleasant surprise. Speaking of this, Qi Lin's cheeks turned red. She lowered her head unnaturally and clasped her hands together as she said, I'm a little afraid that I'm not worthy of Yu Wuhui. Zhuojun smiled, but his fists were clenched tightly. Qi Lin, in my opinion, you're completely worthy of Yu Wuhui. You're the most beautiful woman I've seen since I entered the 100 Outer Realms. Not only are you beautiful on the outside, but you're also beautiful on the inside. Zhuojun said softly. Hearing this, Qi Lin's beautiful eyes revealed joy. She smiled sweetly and said, Really? Junin, thank you. Junin Lin, you're here. An old voice rang out not far away, attracting Zhuojun and Qi Lin's attention. They saw a hunchbacked old man with white hair and beard slowly walking over with a walking stick. This old man looked so frail that he could not even stand a gust of wind, but his eyes flickered with a light that was hard to look at. He was the Qi Huan clan's patriarch, Qi Haozhan. Patriarch, father, Zhuojun and Qi Lin looked at the old man at the same time. Lin, the Burning Moon clan's people will arrive in our realm in a few days. You should prepare well during this period of time. Qi Haozhan looked kindly at Qi Lin and smiled. All right, is that Yu Wuhui coming too? Qi Lin asked slightly nervously. Of course. After all, he's the one who proposed marriage. Qi Haozhan laughed loudly. Qi Lin clenched her fists, her face full of excitement. Chapter 4494. That's right, Junin. Your cultivation is still very weak, but your talent is very strong. I think it won't take you too long to reach the great carefree realm. You have to work hard. When I'm old in the future, perhaps the burden will fall on your shoulders. Qi Haozhan's gaze landed on Zhuojun, and as he laughed heartily, Zhuojun hurriedly cupped his hands and said, Patriarch is too kind. Junin will definitely not disappoint you. Father, Junin's comprehension is really strong. I only taught him the movement skill once, and he already mastered it. He can actually catch up to me, and he has already broken through to the divine fetus transformation. Qi Lin hurriedly said. Qi Haozhan's eyes flashed as he looked deeply at Zhuojun. He said with a smile, Junin, your talent may be better than I thought. Continue to work hard. Our Qi Huan clan will not treat you unfairly. Zhuojun only nodded numbly. His thoughts were in a mess. He knew that this day would eventually come. Yu Wuhui was too strong and too dazzling. Compared to him, he was too small and insignificant. That's right, Patriarch. Have you found any traces of my father? Zhuojun hurriedly asked. Qi Haozhan shook his head and said, I've checked. There is no Zhuowen in the Qi Huan realm and the nearby realms. After all, the 100 realms are too vast. When your father came to the 100 realms, he may have gone to other realms far away. After all, our Qi Huan realm is only a low-level realm. Our intelligence cannot compare to the middle and high-level realms. Hearing this, Zhuejun An's eyes showed disappointment. He also understood that Qi Haozhan was speaking the truth. The 100 realms were too big. He had been in the 100 realms for a while and knew the rank divisions of the realms. The Qi Huan realm was an insignificant realm among the 100 realms. It was also located in a remote area, so it was natural that information was blocked. I'm still too weak now. When I become strong, I can go to higher level realms. At that time, I will be able to find news of my father. Zhuejun clenched his hands tightly, a trace of determination in his eyes. A few days later, the Burning Moon Clan's team arrived at Qi Huan Divine City. Qi Haozhan received the Burning Moon Clan's group with the highest standards and welcomed them into the inner city. In the main hall, there was singing and dancing. Qi Haozhan and Yu Uk sat at the head of the table, and Yu Wuhui and Qi Lin sat on either side of them. Yu Uk was a middle-aged man with a well-proportioned body and a handsome face. He was dressed in a long-sleeved green robe and had an elegant beard. He had the elegant temperament of a scholar. Yu Wuhui sat beside Yu Uk. His appearance was similar to Yu Uk's. He was also very handsome, but his eyes were somewhat sinister. However, his aura was extremely powerful and domineering. Zhuejun sat in a rather remote corner, pouring wine and drinking by himself. His gaze would occasionally fall on Qi Lin and Yu Wuhui. This Yu Wuhui is indeed very strong. It's said that his cultivation has reached the fiend god transformation realm. The difference between us is too great. Zhuejun was depressed as he poured wine and drank by himself. His heart ached when he saw Qi Lin's shy expression. If I were as strong as Yu Wuhui, perhaps I wouldn't have retreated. I would have stood up bravely. Zhuejun An's expression was slightly dispirited as he muttered to himself, "Little brother, you seem to have a great desire for power." Just as Zhuejun was feeling depressed, an indifferent voice came from beside him. Zhuejun turned around and saw a man covered in black robes and wearing a huge hood sitting at the table beside him. A pair of scarlet light shot out from the hood, causing Zhuejun to freeze on the spot. This aura was truly powerful. Zhuejun only needed to look at him, and he felt like he couldn't move. It's an extremely powerful demonic cultivator. Zhuejun's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he thought to himself, "I don't understand what you mean." Zhuejun instantly forced himself to calm down. He looked at the head of the table and frowned when he saw that Qi Haozhan hadn't noticed anything strange. Could this demonic cultivator beside him be a friend that Qi Haozhan had invited? He could clearly feel that the demonic cultivator beside him contained an extremely dangerous aura. It was an aura that was much more dangerous than Qi Haozhan's. Without a doubt, this mysterious demonic cultivator was much stronger than Qi Haozhan. Aren't you lacking confidence because you're too weak? Your face is filled with unwillingness. You're not convinced. The mysterious demonic cultivator spoke again. Zhuejun frowned. "This has nothing to do with you. Don't tell me you can give me power that surpasses Yu Wuhui's on the spot. You've guessed correctly. I can indeed give you great power immediately. However, there's a price to pay for the power. Are you willing to pay that price?" The mysterious demonic cultivator smiled faintly. "What price?" Zhuejun frowned. 90% of her lifespan. The mysterious demonic cultivator said calmly. Zhuejun sneered. "I'm willing to lose 90% of my lifespan just to temporarily gain power. Do you think I'm an idiot?" The mysterious demonic cultivator didn't refute him. Under normal circumstances, no one would do that. However, you'll definitely do it later. After saying that, the mysterious demonic cultivator didn't say anything else. Instead, he slowly poured himself a cup of wine and drank leisurely. Zhuejun frowned slightly. He felt that this mysterious demonic cultivator beside him was a little strange. Why would he sacrifice his lifespan to borrow power? If it wasn't for the fact that Zhuejun didn't sense any obvious malice from this mysterious demonic cultivator, he might have already distanced himself from him. The banquet continued. Everyone had also reached the point where they were drinking to their heart's content. Qi Haozhan and Yu Uk also chatted happily. The two of them toasted each other and chatted merrily. Brother Qi, you and I hit it off at first sight. After the marriage, you and I will be in-laws, Yu Uk said with a smile. Qi Haozhan was very happy. It's my honor to be in-laws with Brother UK. Yu Uk smiled faintly. The marriage between our two clans. Your Qi Huan clan should at least provide some dowry, right? Of course there's a dowry. In fact, it's already prepared. Don't worry, Brother UK, Qi Haozhan said heartily. I won't accept any ordinary dowry. Why don't you give your Qi Huan realm to me as a dowry? Yu Uk said meaningfully. The moment he said that, the atmosphere of the banquet instantly froze. Qi Haozhan frowned slightly and said coldly, Brother UK, there should be a limit to your jokes. Your joke isn't funny. Yu Uk said with a faint smile, Brother Qi, I'm not joking. The marriage between my Burning Moon clan and your Qi Huan clan is mainly because we've taken a fancy to your realm. Don't worry, after the Qi Huan realm merges into my Burning Moon realm, I'll still let you manage it. You only need to submit to me. Qi Haozhan's pupils shrank slightly. His entire body exuded a terrifying coldness. Brother Wuhui, why is it like this? Qi Lin looked as if she had been dealt a heavy blow. Her beautiful eyes looked at Yu Wuhui and asked. The current Yu Wuhui was no longer as gentle and refined as before. The malice in his eyes was no longer concealed. Qi Lin, with your talent and identity, you're not worthy of marrying me at all. If you want to marry into my Burning Moon realm, you must compensate me with the Qi Huan realm as a dowry. I can still reluctantly take you in as a concubine. When he said this, a mocking smile appeared at the corner of Yu Wuhui's mouth. He continued, Haven't you always worshipped me? Then you should persuade Qi Haozhan to accept our sincerity. Otherwise, your Qi Huan clan will face a calamity of destruction. Qi Lin's body turned cold. She looked at Yu Wuhui in disbelief. At this moment, she felt that Yu Wuhui was really a stranger. Chapter 4495. Whoosh. The atmosphere of the banquet instantly turned cold. Everyone's gaze landed on Qi Haozhan and Yu Uk, who were seated at the main seats. Yu Uk, you don't have any sincerity in marrying our Qi Huan clan, do you? Qi Haozhan was furious. His eyes were burning with anger as he stared coldly at Yu Uk. Yu Uk sneered and said indifferently, Qi Haozhan, don't misunderstand. I did come with sincerity. Your Qi Huan clan can only be considered a lower middle clan in the lower realms. Our Burning Moon realm is destined to become a mid-level realm. It's only a matter of time. If your Qi Huan clan submits to me, it will only be beneficial to your Qi Huan clan. Is this not considered sincerity? Yu Uk glanced at Qi Lin, who was behind Qi Haozhan, and your daughter, Qi Lin, is only average in terms of talent and appearance. My son, Yu Wuhui, is extremely talented. He is willing to put down his dignity to marry your daughter. Shouldn't it be an honor for your Qi Huan clan? Yu Uk's voice was calm, but his words made Qi Lin shiver. Yu Uk, you've gone too far. How is my daughter not worthy of Yu Wuhui? Since you don't have any sincerity, then this marriage is off. Qi Haozhan was furious. His aura surged as he stared coldly at Yu Uk. Yu Uk sneered and said, Qi Haozhan, you can reject this marriage, but you must give up the Qi Huan realm. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Yu Uk's aura was much more terrifying than Qi Haozhan's. It completely suppressed Qi Haozhan's aura. This aura, you've broken through to the cosmic aspect realm? Qi Haozhan's expression changed when he felt Yu Uk's terrifying aura. He looked at Yu Uk in shock. Boom! Yu Uk's smile grew wider as he released his aura without holding back. In an instant, the entire hall was affected by this terrifying aura. All the cultivators attending the banquet couldn't help but bend down. What a powerful aura. Yu Uk is already a cosmic aspect realm elite. This is too terrifying. Is this the aura of a cosmic aspect realm? He was much stronger than Qi Haozhan. It's over. The Qi Huan domain is in trouble this time. In the banquet, everyone was struggling with great difficulty. They looked at Flawless Earth, who was sitting on the main seat, with fear in their eyes. They didn't have the slightest bit of fighting spirit in their hearts. Damn it, I can't move. Zhuojun's entire body was slumped over the table. His entire body was stiff, as if it was filled with lead. He was simply too heavy, and it was difficult for him to move. The momentum of the cosmic Dharma idol was too terrifying. He was only in the fetal god transformation stage. Even though he was the furthest away from imperfect moon, he was still greatly affected. Pucci, is this an expert of the great carefree realm? He's too strong. A sliver of despair rose in Zhuojun's heart. Just this aura alone was enough to render him immobile, let alone fight. Qilin, Zhuojun, and raised his head with difficulty and looked at the front of the hall. He found Qilin curled up in a corner, shivering. Qilin was the closest to Uk, so she was naturally affected the most. She even began to vomit blood. Whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, in the banquet, the experts of the Burning Moon realm all stood up and took out their divine artifacts. Everyone, the Burning Moon clan is a kind and tolerant clan. As long as you obey us, we will prosper. If you oppose us, we will die. Yu Yuk's cold gaze swept across every corner of the banquet. He continued, "Don't worry, my main goal is to make the Burning Moon realm a middle-rank realm. As long as you submit to me, you will have contributed greatly. When the Burning Moon realm successfully becomes a middle-rank realm, you will all receive great rewards. Do you want to live on and enjoy glory and wealth? Or do you want to die meaninglessly here? Choose." When these words were said, many of the upper echelons and elites of the Qi Huan clan in the banquet revealed hesitant expressions. They knew very well that Uk was already an expert of the cosmic Dharma idol. With the strength of the Qi Huan clan, even if they fought him head-on, they would be courting death. Everyone, how can you believe the words of others so easily? Uk is just trying to calm you down. Once you listen to him, we will face the disaster of clan annihilation. The veins on Qi Haozhan's forehead bulged. He kept on using his own strength to resist Yu Yuk's pressure as he shouted at the crowd. Haha, if you fight, you will die. If you don't fight, you may still live. Yu Yuk's eyes turned cold. Suddenly, he threw out a palm and blasted it toward Qi Haozhan's face. Qi Haozhan roared and took out his universe world. He squandered his universe divine power and used all his strength to take on Yu Yuk's palm. Qi Haozhan, you talk too much nonsense. Just die. Yu Uk roared and released his aura. The shadow of the cosmic Dharma idol appeared behind him. Instantly, the entire hall set off a terrifying explosion. Then, it completely collapsed. Many cultivators in the banquet fled the moment the hall collapsed. Then, they looked up at the sky in fear. Above them, Qi Haozhan's universe world and Yu Yuk's cosmic Dharma idol were fighting. However, Qi Haozhan was at a disadvantage in an instant. He was constantly pushed back. Crack! A crisp cracking sound was heard. Qi Haozhan's universe world shattered. Pucci! The moment the universe world shattered, Qi Haozhan spat out a mouthful of blood. He screamed and fell from the sky in a sorry state. The strongest person in the Qi Huan clan, Qi Haozhan, was powerless in front of Uk. This scene shocked everyone in the Qi Huan clan. It also completely ignited the fear in their hearts. Qilin, are you okay? Zhuojun and carried Qilin out of the ruins of the hall. When he found that Qilin was fine, he sighed in relief. Junin, I'm fine. Qilin recovered from her fear. After she got up from Zhuojun, she forced a smile on her face. But soon, Qilin's face changed completely. She saw Qi Haozhan fall with serious injuries. No, father. Qilin quickly rushed toward where Qi Haozhan fell. However, she was quickly stopped by a figure. Yu Wuhui, move. Qilin stopped and looked at the handsome man with a malicious gaze. Her eyes were filled with anger. Qilin, you have no manners. Is this how you talk to your fiancé? Yu Wuhui smiled cruelly. He waved his right hand and slapped toward Qi Lin's face. Qi Lin tapped her foot lightly and dodged Yu Wuhui's attack. At the same time, a sharp dagger appeared in her hand. She stabbed it toward Yu Wuhui's vital point. Yu Wuhui smiled coldly. His other hand grabbed Qi Lin's hand and exerted force. Qi Lin painfully threw away the dagger in her hand. Qi Lin, you're too weak. You're just in the hollow god transformation stage. How dare you show off in front of me? Yu Wuhui pulled Qi Lin closer and looked at her coldly with his malicious eyes. There was a mocking smile at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 4496. Let her go. Zhuojun and was enraged. He quickly circled behind Yu Wuhui and slashed at the back of his head with his sword. Yu Wuhui tilted his head and easily dodged Zhuojun's attack. His right leg shot out and landed on Zhuojun's chest. Zhuojun and was sent flying and landed heavily on the ground several feet away, spitting out a mouthful of blood. A divine transformation trash dares to provoke me? Ignorant fools are truly fearless. Yu Wuhui glanced at Zhuojun, and his eyes full of contempt and disdain. Soul attack? Suddenly, Yu Wuhui's expression changed drastically. Several soul sword essences suddenly swept over from his side and pierced into the center of his brows. Yu Wuhui clutched his head in pain and let go of Qi Lin's hand. You call me trash? Didn't you get hit as well? Then what are you? Zhuojun sneered. Junin, are you all right? Qi Lin hurried to Zhuojun and sighed and found that his injuries were quite serious. She blamed herself. At the same time, she was impressed by Zhuojun's powerful combat talent. He was clearly just a divine transformation, but he was able to make Yu Wuhui suffer. Even she couldn't do that. Bastard, how dare you sneak attack me? I'll kill you. Yu Wuhui roared, and a powerful aura burst out. Yu Wuhui's aura grew stronger and stronger, and his body grew larger. 3 meters, 10 meters, 300 meters, until he was 1,000 meters tall. In an instant, Yu Wuhui used his divine transformation, and his terrifying aura was like a dragon or a tiger. Junin, hurry up and leave. I'll cover you. Qi Lin suddenly stood in front of Zhuojun, and her face pale as she faced the divine transformation Yu Wuhui. Zhuojun was startled, and his eyes turned red. He shook his head and said, Qi Lin, I won't leave. How can I leave you behind? Junin, now is not the time to be emotional. Your talent is very good, and you will definitely reach the great carefree realm in the future. If you can escape, you will be the hope of our Qi Huan clan. Hurry up and leave. Although Qi Lin was trembling in fear, she still stood in front of Zhuojun. She had given her life and hope to Zhuojun. Suddenly, Zhuojun stepped forward and hugged Qi Lin. Qi Lin, I like you very much. This might be the last time in my life. No matter what, I have to say it. Zhuojun buried his head in Qi Lin's shoulder and whispered. Qi Lin felt as if she had been struck by a heavy blow. Her eyes turned gentle as she gently hugged Zhuojun back. Junin, thank you for liking me. Hearing this, I'm very happy. Thank you. After saying that, Qi Lin's eyes revealed a resolute expression. She suddenly took out a talisman from her bosom and stuffed it into Zhuojun's hand before crushing it. Junin, if there is an afterlife, I will choose you. Unfortunately, fate makes fools of us. I'm sorry. Qi Lin turned around and kissed Zhuojun's forehead before pushing him away. At the same time, the talisman in Zhuojun's hand exploded with a blazing white light, completely enveloping him. Teleportation talisman? No! Zhuojun shouted and rushed toward Qi Lin again. However, the moment he was about to touch Qi Lin, he was completely teleported away by the talisman. Qi Lin, you deserve to die. How dare you let go of the person your fiancé wants to kill? Then you can go to hell. The fiend god Yu Wuhui snorted coldly. He raised his foot and stomped down on Qi Lin. Boom! The power of this stomp was too strong. The entire air was filled with a terrifying explosion. Countless ring-shaped airwaves swept out in an endless stream. Qilin slowly raised her head and looked at the giant foot that was getting closer and closer in the sky. A bleak smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. All of a sudden, a terrifying force swept out the moment the giant foot completely stomped on Qilin. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Yu Wuhui's giant foot exploded with a loud bang and turned into a billowing blood mist. "Ah, my foot! My foot!" Yu Wuhui screamed and took a few steps back. Looking at his crushed leg, his eyes were filled with shock and anger. Qilin's eyes were still filled with shock. She stared blankly at the figure in front of her. The man in front of her was shrouded in a black robe with a huge hood on his head. Waves of strange fiend god chi emanated from the surface of his body. What a headache. I originally wanted to let June and show off. I didn't expect a little girl like you to teleport him away. The mysterious black-robed man scratched his head helplessly and said in a helpless voice, let June and show off? Qilin didn't understand what this mysterious black-robed man meant. May I ask who you are? Qilin hurriedly asked. Zhuowen. The mysterious black-robed man shrugged and took off his hood, revealing a rather handsome young man's face. Zhuowen? You are Junin's father? Qilin's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as she exclaimed. Zhuowen had mentioned Zhuowen to her many times. Naturally, she was no stranger to his name. But soon, Qilin's expression changed drastically. Senior, we can't stay here for long. Please leave quickly. Qilin had often heard Zhuowen mentioned by Zhuojunin, so she knew that the latter had also come from the lower realm and hadn't even been in the 100 regions for 1,000 years. In her opinion, no matter how talented Zhuojunin's father was, in less than 1,000 years, his cultivation would at most be in the heaven-crushing stage. This kind of strength was simply not enough. He would be cannon fodder if he came here and would be killed by UUK. Don't worry. Since Zhuojun and likes you so much, I won't let your Earth clan be destroyed no matter what. Zhuowen slowly walked forward and patted Qilin's head with a faint smile. Domain name, please remember _3. Hearing this, Qilin's cheeks flushed red. It seemed that her conversation with Zhuojun and had been heard by his father. How embarrassing. Bastard, I want you dead. Yu Wuhui flew into a rage out of humiliation. After his right leg quickly regenerated, he strode forward and punched at Zhuowen with his right fist like a gust of wind. First, so noisy, a cold light flashed in Zhuowen's eyes. With a flick of his right hand, a pitch-black energy shot out. Splat! Yu Wuhui's right arm directly shattered. At the same time, the energy did not diminish and directly pierced through Yu Wuhui's forehead. How could this be? Yu Wuhui's eyes widened as he looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. He did not expect that he would die like this. He did not even see how Zhuowen killed him. Wuhui! Yu naturally saw this scene, and he was so angry that his eyes were about to burst open. He charged at Zhuowen fiercely. You dare to kill my son. I'll make you die without a burial place. Yu was enraged. His entire body merged into his cosmic form, and then he stomped down on Zhuowen. Yu had originally thought that this trip to the Qi Huan realm was in the bag. He did not expect that his son would die in front of him. That was his most beloved son, a top genius who had the potential to surpass him in the future. Senior run, Yu is a cosmic form elite. You are not his match. Qilin shouted worriedly. Many of the cultivators of the Qi Huan clan also looked up and shook their heads in their hearts. They all thought that Zhuowen was dead for sure. In the Qi Huan realm, Yu strength was almost invincible. No one could do anything to him. Demonic flame. Zhuowen only softly uttered a word, and scarlet flames suddenly surged out of his eyes. Whoosh! The scarlet flames seemed to have a mind of their own. They quickly spread and devoured Yu's cosmic form. Yu, who had merged into the cosmic form, did not even have time to scream before he was burned to ashes. In an instant, the entire Qi Huan realm fell into a dead silence. Chapter 4497. Are you kidding me? Yu Uk died just like that. Qi Lin stared blankly at the sky. The ashes that Yu Uk had turned into scattered down from above. Her mouth was wide open. Not only Qi Lin, but everyone from the Qi Huan clan was completely stunned. They looked at the scene in disbelief. UK, who had suppressed the entire Qi Huan clan to the point of being unable to breathe, was actually killed in an instant. This was simply too inconceivable. In a ruin, Qi Haozhan struggled to stand up with the help of two clansmen. Where's Yu Qi Haozhan looked around and did not see Yu Qi. He could not help but ask in surprise. Clan leader, Yu Qi is dead. The two clansmen answered bitterly. Dead? How is that possible? That's an early cosmic Dharma powerhouse. Who in our Qi Huan clan can kill him? Qi Haozhan was stunned at first. Then he said angrily. He felt that the two clansmen were lying to him and was a little angry. Clan leader, it's true. It's that demonic cultivator who killed him. The two clansmen quickly pointed at Zhuowen's back and said to Qi Haozhan, Clan leader is really amazing. He actually made such a powerful demonic cultivator as a friend. It seems that clan leader has already seen through Yu Yuk's trick and is prepared. He's indeed our clan leader. He's really smart and extraordinary. Many of the elites of the Qi Huan clan did not dare to get close to Zhuowen. They all came to Qi Haozhan's side and complimented him. In their opinion, since this mysterious demonic cultivator could appear at the banquet, he must have been invited by Qi Haozhan. This person was more or less related to Qi Haozhan. Qi Haozhan was dumbfounded. From everyone's words, he had already confirmed that Yu Qi was really dead. Thinking of this, Qi Haozhan's gaze fell on the demonic cultivator beside Qi Lin, and he frowned slightly. He did not know this person at all. Moreover, he did not remember having any demonic cultivator friends. Then, how did this person enter his banquet? Brother, you are? Although Qi Haozhan had a lot of thoughts, he did not dare to be negligent. He quickly walked forward and asked Zhuowen politely. Although he didn't know this person, he didn't know what the former's motive was. But since this person had the strength to kill Yu Qi, then he was absolutely not someone their Qi Huan clan could contend against. He naturally had to be cautious. Zhuowen glanced at Qi Haozhan indifferently and said, Zhuowen. Zhuowen? Qi Haozhan was stunned. He felt that this name was very familiar. It seemed that Zhuojun and's father also had this name. Qi Lin first bowed to Zhuowen, then came to Qi Haozhan's side and said, Father, this senior is Junin's father. He was the one who killed you Wu Hui and Yu Qi. Qi Haozhan's eyes widened. His gaze toward Zhuowen was filled with respect and fear. At the same time, Qi Haozhan was also shocked by how powerful Zhuojun and's father was. To instantly kill Imperfect Moon, who was in the early Cosmic Dharma phase, one would need to be at least in the late Cosmic Dharma phase. But he remembered that Zhuowen had said that his father, Zhuowen, had not been in the 100 domains for more than 1,000 years. To be able to possess such strength in such a short period of time, his talent was a little too terrifying. Haozhan greets Senior Zhua. Thank you for your generosity, Senior Zhua, for saving our Qi Huan clan from disaster. Qi Haozhan bowed solemnly to Zhuowen, his eyes filled with respect and gratitude. He knew very well that if Zhuowen hadn't helped, their Qi Huan clan would have been wiped out, and the Qi Huan realm would have been taken away by the Burning Moon realm. Although he was much older than Zhuowen, in the 100 Outer Realms, strength was revered. Whoever was stronger would naturally be the senior. Zhuowen waved his hand and said indifferently, It's just a small matter. It's not worth mentioning. A small matter? Qi Haozhan laughed bitterly in his heart. Zhuowen's small matter was a matter of life and death to him. At the same time, the elites of the Burning Moon clan that Yu Qi had brought were all scared out of their wits when they saw Yu Qi being instantly killed. They all fled outside, but the elites of the Qi Huan clan did not dare to stop them. Although Yu Qi had fallen, the elites that Yu Qi had brought were all very strong. They might not be a match for them. If they rashly tried to stop them now, it was very likely that they would face the fiercest resistance. Huangju, Qirui, kill them all. Zhuowen looked indifferently at the fleeing elites of the Burning Moon clan and said slowly, Two respectful voices came from the void. Then two terrifying auras suddenly burst out. In an instant, everyone in the Chi Huan clan was affected. Many weak cultivators involuntarily knelt on the ground. Then, they all saw a burst of bright starlight above the void. It was as if an endless meteor shower had appeared in the sky in an instant. When the starlight faded, the elites of the Burning Moon clan were all annihilated. Not even dregs were left. That's the divine power of the ancient star. The moment Shi Haozhan saw the starlight in the sky, he immediately thought of something and his body trembled. He knew very well that the divine power of the ancient star was a divine power that only the elites of the ancient star possessed. This meant that the two people who attacked just now were elites of the ancient star cultivation. To Chi Haozhan, an existence with such a cultivation level was like a high and mighty god that was unreachable. Whoosh whoosh. In the blink of an eye, that terrifying aura disappeared. Then, two sounds of wind breaking sounded and landed in front of Zhuowen. A man and a woman with an extraordinary aura knelt in front of Zhuowen on one knee and said respectfully, "Master, according to your orders, none of them were left alive." Master, Chi Haozhan and Qi Lin's expression stiffened. They turned their heads with difficulty to look at the young man in front of them. These two powerful beings of the ancient star cultivation actually called the young man in front of them their master. At this moment, Chi Haozhan and Qi Lin were completely shocked. They were well aware of what this meant. Zhuowen, Zhuojunan's father, was far more powerful than they had imagined. Not bad. Zhuowen nodded indifferently. Then, he turned to look at Qi Lin and said, "You're called Qi Lin, right?" Qi Lin hurriedly responded. She was so nervous that her heart was beating very fast. The person in front of her was a big shot that even the elites of the ancient star cultivation had to bow down to. How could she remain calm in the face of such an existence? "You did well just now. Let me ask you, where was Junin sent to?" Zhuowen looked Qi Lin up and down and secretly nodded in his heart. Although Qi Lin was not extremely beautiful, he could see that the former was indeed a kind-hearted girl. She did not pretend at all. This could be seen from the life and death crisis just now when Zhuojunan fled first. Qi Lin hurriedly said, "Senior, that transmission talisman is random. I don't know the specific location. However, the longest transmission distance is 5 trillion kilometers. I think it's still in the Chi Huan region." Zhuowen nodded and said to Huangju, "Go, find Junin for me." "Yes." Huangju took the order and left. Chapter 4498. Do you know that Junin likes you? Zhuowen looked at Qi Lin and asked with a faint smile. Hearing this, Qi Lin blushed and nodded slightly. Zhuowen smiled and said, "In order to repay your kindness to my son, I'll give you the Burning Moon Realm. Okay?" Qi Lin was stunned. She didn't expect that Zhuowen would give her the Burning Moon Realm. That was a powerful low-level realm that was infinitely close to a mid-level realm. This gift is too valuable. Qi Lin was a little flustered and at a loss. Accept it. I, Zhuowen, have always repaid kindness with kindness and revenge with revenge. Since you've done Junin a favor, then as his father, I must repay it." Zhuowen smiled and then said to Qi Rue, "Go to the Burning Moon Realm. I order you to completely control the Burning Moon clan within 3 days." "Don't worry, Master. Qi Rue will definitely complete it." Qi Rue revealed a charming smile. Her charm was soul-stirring, and many male cultivators of the Qi Huan clan were mesmerized. Zhuowen's eyes were calm, and his emotions didn't fluctuate at all. Qi Lin watched Qi Rue disappear before her eyes. She knew that even if she refused, Zhuowen would still give her the Burning Moon Realm. She might as well accept it openly. Next, Zhuowen was invited by Chi Haozhan to another hall. In order to thank Zhuowen for saving his life, Chi Haozhan treated him with great hospitality. In the northwest region of the Qi Huan realm, in a huge swamp surrounded by purple mist, a figure fell into this place in a sorry state. This was a handsome young man. At this moment, his fists were tightly clenched, and his eyes were filled with grief and indignation. He was Zhuojun, and who was sent away by the teleportation talisman. Damn it, I must hurry back. Zhuojun suddenly punched the ground, his eyes filled with unwillingness. However, he quickly regained his composure. He chose a direction and used his movement technique to rush over. After a while, Zhuojun stopped. He found that he had returned to the swamp just now. What's going on? I'm back to where I started. Zhuojun's expression was ugly. He looked around and found that the surroundings were exactly the same as where he had landed. In other words, after running for so long, he was actually coming back? There's something strange about this swamp. I'm afraid there's some kind of natural illusion array here. Zhuojun frowned slightly. He immediately thought of the strangeness of the swamp, and his expression turned ugly. His father was a powerful array Dao master, so he naturally had access to a lot of array Dao knowledge. It was just that he wasn't interested in the Dao of arrays. Therefore, he only dabbled a little. Although he could see that there was a natural illusory array in the swamp, he was at his wits' end when it came to breaking the array. Damn it! Qi Lin and the Qi Huan clan are now in deep water and fire. How can I waste time here? The veins on Zhuojun's forehead bulged. His heart was filled with unwillingness. Zhuojun continued to run through the swamp, but what made him feel helpless was that he kept returning to the same spot. But Zhuojun, suddenly, a sound exploded in the sky above the swamp, and it resounded ceaselessly like rolling thunder. An unimaginably terrifying aura suddenly swept through the entire swamp. The strange purple fog around the swamp suddenly dissipated because of this pressure, and the surrounding field of vision became much more spacious. Zhuojun raised his head with great difficulty. He was shocked to discover that there was an imposing figure hovering above him. Just by hovering there, this person caused Zhuojun to tremble with fear. So powerful, this aura is much stronger than Yu Yu's. Zhuojun's pupils shrank to the size of needles. A strong sense of helplessness rose in his heart. Facing this person made him feel even more powerless than facing Yu Yu. Is he from the Burning Moon clan? No, this person is definitely stronger than Yu Yu. He can't be from the Burning Moon clan. Then who could he be? Although Zhuojun's body was stiff, his mind was extremely calm. He was quickly thinking of a way to escape. However, he quickly realized that no matter what plan he came up with, it was completely useless against the person in front of him. The middle-aged man, hovering in the air, looked down at Zhuojun. Then, he slowly landed in front of Zhuojun wanted to escape, but his body wouldn't listen to him. He was completely immobilized by the middle-aged man's aura. Then, Zhuojun shockingly discovered that the middle-aged man with the terrifying aura before him was kneeling on one knee in front of him. This subordinate is Huangju. Greetings, young master. The middle-aged man lowered his head slightly as he spoke respectfully. Zhuojun was completely stunned. He looked at the kneeling middle-aged man with a puzzled gaze. This person was even stronger than Yu Yu, but such an expert was kneeling in front of him and calling him young master. Was there a mistake? Zhuojun was stunned in place. He didn't speak for a long time. Huangju was also kneeling on the ground. He didn't speak either. The atmosphere between the two became abnormally awkward. After confirming that Huangju didn't have any ill intentions, Zhuojun asked tentatively, "May I ask if you've mistaken me for someone else? I don't even know you." "You're Zhuojun, then there's no mistake. You're my young master." "Young master, you might not know this, but my master is Zhuowen. He's your father," Huangju quickly said. "What? Father?" Zhuojun was stunned at first. Then, his eyes were filled with excitement. At the same time, his heart was filled with suspicion. Although he had always worshipped Zhuowen and believed that Zhuowen would be able to achieve great things after entering the 100 Outer Realms, he had never seen Zhuowen before. But this time was too short. How could he already have such a terrifying expert as Huangju as a subordinate? All right, where's my father now? Also, the Qi Huan clan is in trouble. I have to go back and beg them. Can you go back with me? Zhuo Jun and blurted out all the questions in his heart. His face was filled with anxiety. Young master, don't worry. The problem with the Qi Huan clan has been solved by my master. I was sent by my master to look for you. Huang Ju said softly. Hearing this, Zhuo Jun and was stunned at first. Then he heaved a sigh of relief. Now, Zhuo Jun and could vaguely guess that Zhuowen was very powerful. With his help, the Qi Huan clan should be able to survive. I wonder how Qi Lin is doing. Zhuo Jun thought of Qi Lin's heroic figure before he left, and a wave of worry rose in his heart. Young master, don't worry. The woman you care about has been saved by my master. She's safe and sound. Huang Ju seemed to have seen through Zhuo Jun's thoughts and said calmly. Zhuo Jun's body trembled slightly. Then he clenched his fists tightly and finally heaved a sigh of relief. Thank you, Zhuo Jun, and looked at Huang Ju and smiled. Huang Ju was stunned. His face suddenly became unnatural. He turned his head and said in a low voice, Working for my master and young master is my duty as a servant, but I still have to thank you. Zhuo Jun smiled brightly. Huang Ju looked deeply at Zhuo Jun, and there was a trace of complexity in his eyes. Young master, it's time for us to go. Master has been looking for you. He's been worried about you. Huang Ju said softly. Okay. Zhuo Jun nodded. Under Huang Ju's escort, they successfully left the swamp and headed towards the Qi Huan holy city. Chapter 4499. In the main hall of the inner city of Qi Huan holy city. Under Qi Haozhan's insistence, Zhuowen had no choice but to sit on the main seat and accept the worship of the people of Qi Huan clan. Zhuowen also knew that Qi Haozhan was expressing his gratitude, so he did not reject it too much. After chatting for a while, Qi Haozhan heaved a sigh of relief. He had a rough understanding of Zhuowen and knew that he was not an arrogant person. Clan leader, Zhuo Jun is back. Outside the main hall, a subordinate rushed in and knelt on the ground to report. Jun is back. Let him in. Qi Haozhan quickly said. Zhuowen, who was sitting on the main seat, had a sharp look in his eyes. Qi Lin, who was not far away, had a strange look in her beautiful eyes. Yes, the subordinate took the order and left. After a while, he brought Huang Ju and Zhuo Jun into the main hall. When Zhuo Jun entered the main hall, the first thing he saw was Qi Lin. He heaved a sigh of relief. Huang Ju did not lie to him. Qi Lin was indeed fine. Jun greets the clan leader. Zhuo Jun first saluted Qi Haozhan before his gaze fell on the tall figure sitting on the main seat. In an instant, the father and son looked at each other. A sense of excitement rose in their hearts as they reunited after a long separation. Father, Zhuo Jun's lips moved. After a while, he finally called out the name that he had not used for a long time. Zhuowen stood up and walked down from the main seat until he was in front of Zhuo Jun. Jun, long time no see. You've grown up and become much stronger. Ha! Zhuowen laughed and hugged Zhuo Jun tightly. Although the father and son did not speak much, they knew that the feelings between them were unspoken. Father, thank you. Zhuo Jun hugged Zhuowen and whispered to Zhuowen. Zhuowen's lips curled up. He knew why Zhuo Jun and was thanking him. Kid, I'm your father after all. If I don't help you, who will? Right, Qilin, this little girl is not bad. You can't let her down. Zhuowen said in a low voice before winking at Zhuo Jun. Zhuo Jun's face flushed red as he stammered. Father, it's not what you think. Right. It's not what I think. Anyway, I'll support you no matter what you do. I'll be your most solid backing. Zhuowen said with a smile. Yes. Zhuo Jun nodded heavily, looking at Zhuowen with eyes full of admiration and gratitude. Junin, it's great that you're fine. Qi Haozhan brought Qi Lin forward as he spoke with a kind gaze. Actually, it's all thanks to Qi Lin. If it wasn't for her risking her life to save me, I'm afraid I would really be in danger. This is all thanks to Qi Lin. Zhuo Jun scratched his head. Although Qi Lin didn't say anything, her beautiful eyes glanced at Zhuo Jun from time to time, her cheeks blushing. Qi Haozhan was an astute person. Naturally, he could see that there was something going on between Zhuojun and Qi Lin. It seemed that something had happened between the two of them when they fought side by side in the battle with Yu Wuhui. When he thought of this, Qi Haozhan was overjoyed. He had always thought highly of Zhuojun, and now Zhuojun was Zhuowen's son. He had a bright future and a strong background. If Zhuojun and Qi Lin could be together, Qi Haozhan would definitely approve of it. After the matter of the Burning Moon realm came to an end, Zhuowen temporarily stayed in Qi Huan Divine City for a while. 3 days later, Qi Ruei returned and took complete control of the Burning Moon realm. When Zhuowen handed over the control of the Burning Moon realm to Qi Lin and Qi Haozhan turned pale with fright. It was as if they were in a dream. They didn't think that they would take over the Burning Moon realm so easily. Later, when Qi Haozhan heard the names of Huang Ju and Qi Ruei, he finally understood. This was because he had heard of these two people before. They were both supreme experts of a higher realm. It was no wonder that they could take over the Burning Moon realm so easily. Zhuojun also learned from Zhuowen that the Ryuka had arrived in the 100 Outer Realms. He also learned that Zhuowen had established his own force in the 100 Outer Realms. Zhuowen's force was called the Kanglan Realm. It was a new realm that gathered all the higher realms and was infinitely close to becoming a supreme realm. Zhuowen, I need to hurry back. The Kanglan Realm is still in its infancy. There are still many things that I need to take care of. Zhuowen stood by the window of the palace with his hands behind his back. He looked at the sky outside the window. Zhuojun stood behind Zhuowen and said, Father, are you leaving so soon? Come with me to the Kanglan Realm. Go see your mother, grandfather, grandmother, and the others. Also, if you like Qi Lin, I can propose marriage to Qi Huan Realm in the name of the Kanglan Realm. I don't think Qi Haozhan will refuse. Zhuowen turned around and looked at his son who was about the same height as him. His expression was peaceful. Zhuojun frowned slightly. After a moment of hesitation, he shook his head and said, Father, I won't go back for the time being. I will take care of the matter between Qi Lin and myself. Why? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Zhuojun clenched his fists and a ray of hope flashed in his eyes. He said, Of course it's because I admire you. Father, since you entered the 100 Outer Realms alone and went from having nothing to becoming an existence that even the supreme race of a higher realm has to bow down to you. You are truly amazing. You're really amazing. You've always been my goal. Therefore, in order to be on the same level as you, I don't want to be under your protection. I want to rely on my own strength to gain a foothold in the 100 Outer Realms and eventually catch up to your footsteps. Zhuowen was stunned. He looked at the energetic young man in front of him with a complicated gaze. At this moment, Zhuowen saw a shadow of himself in Zhuojun, and Zhuowen's lips curled into a smile. His smile grew wider and wider until he finally burst into laughter. He patted Zhuojun's shoulder heavily and said, As expected of my son, I am very happy that you have such aspirations. I look forward to the day you can catch up to me. Since you have made this decision, I will not force you. Before I leave, I want to give you something. As he spoke, Zhuowen pointed 2 fingers at Zhuojun's forehead. In an instant, a vast and complicated information swept through Zhuojun's mind. He couldn't help but clutch his head and groan in pain. Zhuowen, this is the most precious gift I can give you. Accept my inheritance. If you want to catch up to me, then you must digest it, surpass it, and defeat it. Zhuowen looked at Zhuojun's pained expression and spoke softly. It was as if he was teaching Zhuojun a lesson. At this moment, Zhuowen had passed on all his knowledge and experience to Zhuojun, and including the primordial technique. He firmly believed that with Zhuojun's comprehension ability and his inheritance, he would definitely be able to catch up to him. In the future, he would rise rapidly and become a powerful expert in the 100 Outer Realms. He was looking forward to the arrival of that day. Chapter 4500. When Zhuojun finally fainted from the intense pain, Qi Lin happened to walk in. Jun, Qilin hurried to Zhuojun inside and held him in her arms, her eyes full of worry. "Little girl, don't worry. Junin has only fainted. I'm leaving. Remember to take good care of him." Zhuowen looked at Qilin and continued, "Before I leave, I hope you can help me pass on a message to Junin. Senior, please tell me. This junior will definitely pass on your message in full detail." Qilin said seriously. A so-called expert is someone who can gradually crush adversity at any time. In the future, he still has a long way to go and will be even more difficult. But as long as he doesn't give up, he can turn adversity into strength and continue to improve and grow. Do your best, my son. As soon as she finished speaking, Qilin was shocked to find that Zhuowen's figure had already disappeared. Junin's father is really strong. With such a strong father, Junin didn't want to rely on him and instead wanted to rely on his own strength. "You're really handsome." Qilin stretched out her fair hand and gently stroked Zhuojun An's cheek, her eyes as tender as water. "Master, don't we need to send someone to protect the young master?" Huangju followed behind Zhuowen on the way and couldn't help but ask. "No need. A young eagle needs to face difficulties alone in order to grow into a mighty eagle that soars through the 9 heavens." Zhuowen responded indifferently. Although he said so, he had actually left some tricks on Zhuojun in the inheritance he had given Zhuojun, and it contained 3 full blows of his current strength, enough to repel any expert below the reverse ancient starlight level. Moreover, once his tricks were triggered, Zhuowen would immediately discover and report back to him the specific location of Zhuojun. This was the best preparation Zhuowen could do for Zhuojun. After Zhuowen returned to the Kanglan domain, he immediately became busy. After all, the Kanglan domain was still in its infancy, and there were many things that were far from perfect that required Zhuowen to deal with personally. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, several decades had passed. The development of the Kanglan domain was finally on the right track. During this period of time, many experts appeared in large numbers, and many of them were mortals who had cultivated the simplified version of the primordial technique. Zhuowen was not surprised by this. In the 100 territories of the Outer Realm, the largest number of people were naturally those mortals who were unable to attain the Tao. In the face of absolute numbers, there would definitely be a small number of true geniuses with peerless natural talent, and they were the group of people that had been buried by the supreme natural Tao root. However, this did not mean that their comprehension and talent were mediocre. It was this group of people who worshipped Zhuowen the most. This was because it was Zhuowen who had given them another chance to step onto the path of becoming a powerhouse. This was no different from a new lease of life. At the same time, all of the Ryuka cultivators had also reached the heaven-crushing stage under Duan Jipeng's training. Moreover, they had also started to join the Kanglan realm and assume certain positions. Zhuowen believed that as the strength of the Ryuka gradually increased, they would eventually enter the upper echelons of the Kanglan domain and gain some authority. However, this would all take time. What surprised Zhuowen the most was that Mu Qinxue and Lu Hantian had improved the fastest among everyone. In a short few decades, under the guidance of numerous resources and Moyan Wushang's personal guidance, their cultivation had improved extremely quickly after they had broken the heaven-crushing stage. When Zhuowen saw them again, their cultivation had already reached the heaven-crushing 8 transformations, the demonic god transformation stage. Feng Xiao, Long Xiaodian, Green Hat, and Purple Star Monarch's improvement speed was second only to the 2 of them, and they had also reached the heaven-crushing 7 transformations. As for Zhuowen's other relatives, such as Zhuoxiangding, Zhuoxiang, and so on, their talent was very average. They had spent several decades, and with the help of numerous resources, they had only barely reached the heaven-crushing first transformation stage. However, Zhuowen did not force them. After all, not everyone's cultivation talent was the same. He naturally could not use the same standard for everyone. Kanglan Holy City, within the main hall. Zhuowen was sitting on the main seat, discussing matters with the higher-ups of the Kanglan domain. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly, and he stopped talking. In an instant, all the higher-ups in the main hall fell silent and looked at Zhuowen in puzzlement. Ziyang, Luoya, I'll leave the rest to you to discuss. I have something to do, so I'll go out for a while. After Zhuowen finished speaking, he disappeared from the main seat as if he had evaporated into thin air. In the main hall, the higher-ups looked at each other, not understanding what was going on. In the bedchamber, Zhuowen quietly appeared. With a wave of his sleeve, he took out a remnant map from the outside world. The remnant map was emitting a strange light, bright and dazzling, as if it was gilded. Boy, this remnant map suddenly changed like this. What's going on? Xiao He rushed out of the outside world, looking at the bright remnant map in front of him with a bewildered look, and asked. Zhuowen frowned slightly. In fact, he did not know what had happened to the remnant map. After experiencing extreme heat, the remnant map finally calmed down. Strange characters flew out from the remnant map. These characters were displayed in mid-air in front of Zhuowen. Zhuowen was obviously unfamiliar with these characters, but the moment his eyes met the characters, his mind instantly understood the meaning of these characters. The wheel of history has begun to turn. Evil spirits roar in the abyss, and all living beings sink in the sea of bitterness. The door to the abyss has been opened. Those who enter this door must give up everything. Zhuowen read the characters suspended in mid-air, but his eyes slowly narrowed. What the hell is this? Although Xiao He could not read the characters, he naturally understood what Zhuowen was saying, and his eyes were full of doubts. Abyss. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a thoughtful look, and he immediately thought of the owner of the remnant map. It was a powerful person from the Abyss domain, and the remnant map recorded the ruins where that powerful person fell. I'm afraid the door to the ruins marked by the remnant map has been opened. At present, this is the only way I can understand it. Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Boy, look, the remnant map is changing. Suddenly, Xiao He's exclamation attracted Zhuowen's attention. Zhuowen looked up and saw that the characters above the remnant map were beginning to combine, forming a three-dimensional image of a certain area. This is a topographic map of a certain place. This is... It's the extraterritorial starry sky. Zhuowen carefully looked at the three-dimensional image formed by countless characters and immediately recognized the approximate location of the map. The extraterritorial starry sky? Isn't it at the extraterritorial battlefield? Xiao He revealed a look of surprise. Zhuowen nodded, put away the remnant map, and took out a communication jade talisman to send a message to Elder Anshi. At the same time, in the depths of the various great forces of the Supreme Domain, every expert who possessed the remnant map had sensed the changes in the remnant map. Is it the extraterritorial starry sky? How interesting. The remnant map finally reacted. I've been waiting for a long time. The Abyss Domain, the most mysterious and invincible domain, the ruins of a powerful person. I'm really looking forward to it. The eyes of the experts who held the remnant map emitted a cold light, and they looked at the three-dimensional image revealed by the remnant map, eager to take action. Chapter 45:01. It's actually in the extraterritorial starry sky. Zhuowen stared quietly at the three-dimensional map on the map fragment, his eyes flickering with a strange light. He had long heard of the extraterritorial battlefield. In order to improve his strength, Duan Jiping had gone to the extraterritorial battlefield to gain experience and quickly entered the great carefree realm. It could be seen that the extraterritorial battlefield was indeed a supreme treasure land with many opportunities, as Duan Jiping had said. Of course, high opportunities were also accompanied by high risks. This was the main reason why many cultivators from the 100 territories outside the outer realm had rushed into the extraterritorial battlefield. I heard that the extraterritorial battlefield is a battlefield specially open for the extraterritorial creatures. There are too many experts in the extraterritorial battlefield. Once you enter, it's either you die or I die. It's very cruel. Xiao He floated in the air, her little paw rubbing her chin, her eyes full of seriousness. Yes, I've heard Brother Duan introduce the extraterritorial battlefield. It was jointly opened by the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy and the 5 Invincible Realms. As for the reason, Brother Duan doesn't know. Zhuowen said, since Duan Jiping knows about it, I think you'd better discuss it with him first. Anyway, you have a lot of places on the map fragment. I think you'll bring Duan Jiping, right? Xiaohei looked at Zhuowen and said, yes, I do plan to bring Brother Duan. Zhuowen nodded slightly, took out the communication jade talisman, and sent a message to Duan Jiping. After a while, Duan Jiping hurried over and entered Zhuowen's palace. Brother Zhua, why did you call me in such a hurry? Duan Jiping asked. Brother Duan, do you remember that you mentioned the extraterritorial battlefield to me? Zhuowen looked at Duan Jiping and said in a deep voice. Duan Jiping was stunned, then nodded heavily and said, of course I remember. I told you that I would give you a good opportunity. However, many things happened later, which caused the trip to the extraterritorial battlefield to be delayed. Speaking of this, Duan Jiping's mouth revealed a bitter smile. When he'd first met Zhuowen in the 100 Territories, Zhuowen's cultivation had only been at the ancient star transformation. Now, Zhuowen's strength had already reached the point where he could only look up to him, and he had even accidentally become Zhuowen's subordinate. It had to be said that fate really played tricks on people. Zhuowen nodded. Back then, Duan Jiping had indeed told him that he would bring him to a place of inheritance in the extraterritorial battlefield. Obviously, at that time, Duan Jiping had planned to let Zhuowen grow up quickly. It was out of good intentions. This time, I'm going to make a trip to the extraterritorial battlefield. Brother Duan, I'll also give you a good fortune this time. I wonder if you want it? The corners of Zhuowen's mouth lifted into a smile. He gently opened his right hand, and a map fragment that was emitting a resplendent glow appeared in his palm. The moment Duan Jiping saw this map fragment, his pupils shrank to the size of needles, revealing a look of disbelief. This map fragment is finally reacting? Duan Jiping looked at the three-dimensional image that had appeared on the map fragment, and there was a look of excitement in the depths of his eyes. He had long known about the map fragment. Now that the map fragment had such a strange reaction, he naturally understood that the ruins marked in the map fragment were probably about to open. Yes, the map fragment suddenly sent me the location, and it also conveyed a very strange message. Zhuowen said in a deep voice. What message? Duan Jiping asked curiously. The wheel of history has begun to turn. Ferocious spirits roared in the abyss, and all living beings sank in the sea of bitterness. The door to the abyss has opened. Those who enter this door must give up everything. Zhuowen recited slowly. After listening, Duan Jiping's pupils shrank slightly, revealing a look of contemplation. The so-called abyss, is it referring to the abyss realm? Duan Jiping murmured. Zhuowen shook his head and said, I don't think so. Combined with the following sentence, I think the abyss here should be referring to the ruins of the abyss realm's almighty. And I have a hunch that the ruins are definitely very dangerous. Duan Jiping's eyes flickered, and his brows furrowed slightly. He said, You're right. According to your understanding, it should be correct. This trip bodes ill rather than well. I wonder if the map fragment has the specific time of opening of the ruins? Zhuowen shook his head and said with a wry smile, There is no such thing. It only shows such a three-dimensional image. I have never been to the extraterritorial battlefield, so I don't know the terrain there. Did you discover anything? Duan Jiping carefully observed, and suddenly his face turned ugly. What's wrong? Zhuowen saw that Duan Jiping's expression was not very good and hurriedly asked, If I didn't guess wrongly, the place that the map fragment shows should be one of the most dangerous places in the extraterritorial battlefield. The demonic corpse cliff. Duan Jiping's expression was ugly as he slowly spat out these words. Demonic corpse cliff? Zhuowen's eyes were still a little confused. He was not familiar with the extraterritorial battlefield, and this so-called demonic corpse cliff was the first time he had heard of it. Yes, the demonic corpse cliff is known as one of the most dangerous places in the extraterritorial battlefield. This place is filled with mountains of corpses and evil spirits. Many cultivators who entered this place died without knowing why. When Duan Jiping mentioned the demonic corpse cliff, his body trembled slightly. Clearly, he was fearful and in awe of such a dangerous place. He died without knowing why. Zhuowen immediately noticed the key point that Duan Jiping mentioned. Yes, the reason why the demonic corpse cliff is known as one of the most dangerous places in the extraterritorial battlefield is largely because of this. The cultivators who entered all died in a very strange manner, and the cause of their death has not been found out until now. Duan Jiping smiled bitterly, and there was still a trace of fear in his eyes. There was once a lawful embodiment of heaven and earth powerhouse who went in to save people, but in the end, they all disappeared without a trace. Dead or alive, no corpses were found. Duan Jiping continued. F***CK. So scary? Even a lawful embodiment of heaven and earth powerhouse went in and disappeared without a trace. What the hell is this place? Xiaohei's hair stood on end, and he felt a chill run down his spine. However, Zhuowen calmed down and said, "You said that a lawful embodiment of heaven and earth powerhouse went missing inside. In other words, there's a high probability that a powerhouse of this level is not easily killed in the demonic corpse cliff. There's a high possibility that they are trapped somewhere." Duan Jiping nodded and said, "Brother Zhua is right. Back then, many people also had such a guess. But this is already scary enough. Powerhouses below the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth have a high risk of dying, and they died without knowing why. Even a lawful embodiment of heaven and earth powerhouse has a high probability of being trapped in there and difficult to find traces." Zhuowen also nodded in agreement. Just based on this point alone, the demonic corpse cliff was indeed a very scary place. In 100 domains outside the world, a lawful embodiment of heaven and earth powerhouse was already standing at the peak of the world. For the demonic corpse cliff to be able to trap a powerhouse of this level, one had to admit that it was indeed terrifying. Chapter 4502. Brother Duan, are you still willing to go with me? Zhuowen looked at Duan Jiping and asked seriously. Duan Jiping's eyes showed hesitation. The demonic corpse cliff was indeed an extremely dangerous place for him. Although his cultivation had improved a lot, and he had reached the early stage of the inverse ancient star light stage, he still feared the demonic corpse cliff. However, he still had a deep fear of the demonic corpse cliff. If he was not careful in that place, he would definitely die. Zhuowen looked at Duan Jiping silently and did not urge him. He patiently waited for Duan Jiping's answer. I'll go. Riches and honor are found in danger. I must go." Duan Jiping gritted his teeth and looked at Zhuowen with a firm gaze. He seemed to have used all his strength to shout. A wisp of a smile appeared on the corners of Zhuowen's mouth as he nodded and said, "All right. Brother Duan, don't worry. I won't let anything happen to you. I promise." Duan Jiping smiled bitterly. I hope so. Although he knew that Zhuowen was strong enough, he could not be as strong as the law phenomenon. However, he still had hope in his heart. After all, Zhuowen had the incomplete map. Relying on the incomplete map's guidance, the danger in the demonic corpse cliff would be reduced to the lowest. As long as they were lucky enough, they might really gain something. Brother Duan, don't worry. This time, there's a senior with the law phenomenon cultivation. He promised me that he would fight for me 3 times. Zhuowen said with a smile. Duan Jiping was startled and immediately revealed a look of ecstasy. With the incomplete map's guidance and a law phenomenon expert, their chances of success would be greater. Since there's such an expert accompanying you, why didn't you say so earlier? You made me worried. Duan Jiping rolled his eyes at Zhuowen. I wanted to see your determination. In the end, you didn't let me down? Zhuowen said with a smile. Duan Jiping took a deep look at Zhuowen and smiled. The next day, Zhuowen and Duan Jiping were ready to set off for the extraterritorial battlefield. There were not many people accompanying them this time. Other than Zhuowen and Duan Jiping, There were also Ziyang and Luoya. The reason Zhuan brought these two people with him was because they were currently the two people with the highest cultivation bases in the Kanglan domain. If they could obtain a great opportunity in the demonic corpse cliff this time, perhaps the two of them would have a high probability of breaking through to the law phenomenon realm, thus allowing the Kanglan domain to possess the qualifications to become a super domain. Mo and Wushang originally wanted to come along, but because Mu Qinxue, Lu Hantian, and other Ryuka executives still needed her to train, so she couldn't leave. In addition, the Kanglan domain must be controlled by someone who Zhuan could trust and who was strong enough. Duan Jiping, Ziyang, and Luo Yet all left with him. Only Mo and Wushang was left. Husband, you're still so worrisome. You only know how to run around every day. Mu Qinxue came in front of Zhuan and gently tidied his clothes, her eyes full of reproach. Zhuan scratched his head, an apologetic look on his face. Mu Qinxue was right. He had only been reunited with Mu Qinxue and his family and friends for a few decades, and now he had to leave again. This made him feel a little ashamed. But I know you're doing this for us, so you must come back safely. We're all waiting for you. Mu Qinxue's eyes were like water. She smiled sweetly at Zhuan and hugged Zhuan tightly. After the two were done, Zhuan, Lu Hantian, Long Xiaotian, and other Ryuka close friends hugged one by one, and finally looked at Mo and Wushang. Wushang, I'm sorry to put this burden on you. It's been hard on you this time. Zhuan walked forward and gently hugged Mo and Wushang with an apologetic look in his eyes. Why are you saying this to me? You're all my closest friends. Shouldn't it be natural for me to do things for my family? Mo and Wushang blinked and said in a slightly playful tone, Haha, it's my fault. We're a family. Let's not say these polite words. I'll leave everything to you. Zhuan smiled, jumped onto the divine warship, and waved goodbye to everyone. After leaving Kanglan Realm, Zhuan did not go directly to the extraterritorial battlefield. Instead, he went to Suyin Realm. Elder Anshi had sent him a message, asking him to come to Suyin Divine City first, and then they would go to the extraterritorial battlefield together. In Suyin Divine City, in the hall of the Shulong family, Su Jing sat on the main seat. Beside him was a middle-aged man with an extraordinary aura. This man was the head of the Shulong family, Mi Hao Miao. Next to Su Jing stood the pale-faced Su Mianyang, who wore a sinister expression. Head Mei, the ruins of the map fragment should be opening soon. This time, with our strong alliance, we'll definitely reap a lot of benefits. Su Jing's gaze fell on Mi Hao Miao, and a confident smile appeared on his face. Mi Hao Miao nodded and pondered for a moment before saying, I heard that the ruins are located in the demonic corpse cliff? Yes. Su Jing narrowed her eyes and became extremely serious. The demonic corpse cliff was a dangerous place that even lawful embodiment of heaven and earth experts like Su Jing and Mi Hao Miao were wary of. That's not a safe place. Even you and I have to be extremely careful. However, with the map fragment's guidance, our danger will be greatly reduced. Su Jing said indifferently. Mi Hao Miao nodded and said, I believe that little bastard Zhuan must have received the notice of the map fragment. I wonder if that little bastard has the guts to enter the demonic corpse cliff? Su Jing said indifferently. According to Zhuan's character, he'll definitely enter. However, he's no fool. He'll definitely use the map fragment's quota to rope in many people, including the Su Ming family. Brother Jiang, entering the demonic corpse cliff is a good opportunity. If I'm not wrong, the map fragment is an extremely important part of the ruins. The more map fragments we have, the more advantageous it will be for us after we enter the ruins. Mi Hao Miao said eerily. Su Jing's eyes lit up as he said in a low voice, We can't make a move in Su Yin City. If we want to make a move, we'll have to go to the extraterritorial battlefield. Oh, Brother Jing, do you have a brilliant plan? Mi Hao Miao looked at Su Jing and asked thoughtfully. It's not a brilliant plan, but it can at least make Zhuan suffer. The corners of Su Jing's mouth curled into a sinister smile as he revealed his plan. While the Su Long and Su Chi families were secretly working together, Zhuan had already entered Su Yin City and met up with Elder Anqi. "Oh, are you planning to let Li Yinglong join your team?" After a short conversation, Elder Anqi looked at Zhuan and asked in surprise. "Yes, this trip to the demonic corpse cliff doesn't bode well. Naturally, the more experts there are, the better," Zhuan said in a low voice. Elder Anqi nodded and didn't refuse. After knowing that the ruins were located at the demonic corpse cliff, he knew that this trip would be extremely dangerous. It would be a good thing if there was another lawful embodiment of heaven and earth expert like him. After confirming this, Zhuan and his group went to the Su Ming family to meet Li Yinglong. After knowing the purpose of Zhuan's visit, Li Yinglong was extremely enthusiastic and agreed to go to the demonic corpse cliff with Zhuan without much hesitation. Chapter 45:03. Zhua Xiaoyu. The ruins are a rare opportunity. I would like to bring some juniors with me. Is that possible? Li Yinglong looked at Zhuan and asked somewhat embarrassedly. Zhuan pondered for a moment and said, "Yes, but it's best not to bring too many. Otherwise, you won't be able to take care of everyone." Li Yinglong smiled and said, "I will only bring Li Ying and Li Shua. They are the strongest geniuses of the younger generation of the Shueshing family. Sure, as long as Master Li can protect them, I have no objections." Zhuan nodded. After confirming Li Yinglong's affirmative answer, Zhuan took out his communication jade and sent a message to Godin. Back in the Golden Crow Mountains, he had promised God and that he would give him a spot in the map fragment. Naturally, he would not go back on his word. Not long after the message was sent, Godin replied to Zhuan. To Zhuan's surprise, Godin rejected Zhuan's invitation. The reason was very simple. Godin and the forces behind him could only be considered below average in a super realm. Moreover, they did not have any lawful embodiment of heaven and earth experts. Therefore, when Godin found out that the ruins were at the demonic corpse cliff, he chose to give up in the end. Zhuan did not say anything. He respected Godin's choice. After all, the demonic corpse cliff was indeed too dangerous. After weighing the pros and cons, Godin decided to give up in the end. Zhuan could understand this. After Zhuan and the others stayed in the Shueshing family for 3 days, Li Yinglong and the others finally finished their preparations. The next day, in the open space in front of the Shueshing family's main hall, a rather large divine ship was parked. Li Yinglong walked out of the main hall with Li Ying and Li Shua. "Lord Zhua, I'm really sorry to have kept you waiting." Li Yinglong walked forward with an apologetic expression. Then, he looked at Li Ying and Li Shua behind him and gave them a meaningful look. "Greetings, Lord Zhua." Li Ying and Li Shua hurried forward and bowed respectfully to Zhuan. Li Shua secretly sized up Zhuan, and he couldn't help but sigh in his heart that Zhuan was really different from the past. Back when he and Li Hong had invited Zhuan to participate in the 3 Great Clans tournament, Zhuan's strength and status were not as high as they were now. It had only been a short while, but Zhuan had already become a figure that even their patriarch had to treat with respect. At the same time, Li Shua rejoiced inwardly. His relationship with Zhuan had been relatively good since the beginning, and he had not offended the latter. On the other hand, Shell Ying's heart was in a mess. After all, during the competition between the 3 clans, he had underestimated Zhuan and offended him. Now, the difference between him and Zhuan was like heaven and earth. He couldn't help but worry that Zhuan would hold a grudge against him because of this. No need to be so courteous. It was family head Li who gave you the opportunity to go to the ruins. The one you should really thank is family head Li. Zhuan waved his hand and said flatly. Li Shua and Li Ying hurriedly said yes. When they got up, they noticed Elder Anqi beside Zhuan. "Elder Anqi? Why are you here too?" Li Ying asked in surprise. Elder Anqi said indifferently, "I owe Zhua Xiaoyu a favor. Therefore, I'm following him this time to protect him." Li Ying and Li Shua looked at each other. They were even more in awe of Zhuan. Elder Anqi was a genuine lawful embodiment of heaven and earth expert. His strength was even above their patriarch, Li Yinglong. Moreover, Elder Anshi's identity was extremely mysterious. Even the king of Hell's people had to give him face. Such a big shot actually owed Zhuan a favor. This shocked Li Ying and Li Shuo, and they were even more in awe of Zhuan. Li Yinglong was deep in thought. He looked deeply at Zhuan and thought, "It seems that I've underestimated Zhuo Xiaoyu. He might be even more powerful than I thought." Thinking of this, Li Yinglong was even more determined to build a good relationship with Zhuan. "Young Master Zhuo, you have to be careful of Su Jing and Mi Hao Miao when you go to the extraterritorial battlefield. The two of them should be working together." Li Yinglong came to Zhuan's side and whispered. Zhuan nodded. His heart was cold. Speaking of which, the map fragment in Su Jing's hand was snatched by Zhuan and given to Su Zhou. Originally, he had no enmity with Su Zhou. Unfortunately, Su Zhou was truly too conceited and opinionated, and he actually wanted the other incomplete map in Chun Shi's possession and trampled on Chun Shi's bottom line. In the end, Su Zhou suffered a double loss. Even the Xulong family suffered a great loss. If the Xulong family still wants to cause trouble, then I'll accompany them to the end. Zhuan's lips curled into a cold smile. With his current strength, he might not be able to contend with the Xulong family. However, if the Xulong family and Xulong family wanted to kill him, it would be extremely difficult. He really did not fear these two families. Li Yinglong's lips moved when he saw that Zhuan didn't care too much. In the end, he said nothing. Only old man Anshi glanced at Zhuan, deep in thought. He couldn't help but recall how Zhuan had easily brought back the heaven and earth furnace. He knew very well that the latter must have some extremely powerful technique that he didn't know about. After the group entered the divine ship, it rose into the air and shot off into the distance with a whoosh. The extraterritorial battlefield was jointly established by the 5 invincible domains and the primeval heavenly Tao Academy. Thus, to enter the battlefield, one must first enter one of the 5 invincible domains and the primeval heavenly Tao Academy. Old man Anshi sat in the main seat of the divine ship. With a light tap of his finger, a huge topographic map appeared in the air. This topographic map was a detailed and complete map of the extraterritorial battlefield. The map was divided into a total of 108 regions. Among them, 15 regions were obviously vastly different from the others. These 15 regions were where the 9 supreme domains, the 5 invincible domains, and the primeval heavenly Tao Academy were located. These 15 regions were separated from the other regions by the vast and strange dark ruins. This dark ruins was like an endless undercurrent that ran through the extraterritorial battlefield. It was like the strictest dividing line that separated the regions above the supreme domain. Zhuan silently looked at the topographic map above him and suddenly thought of the concept of the difference between immortals and mortals. The supreme domains, invincible domains, and the primeval heavenly Tao Academy above the dark ruins were like high and mighty immortals that looked down on the higher, middle, and lower domains below the dark ruins. The 15 regions were naturally different from each other. The 9 supreme domains were located at the outermost layer of the dark ruins and were also the regions closest to the higher domains. Further in were the 5 invincible domains. These 5 invincible domains were extremely far away from the supreme domains and were much further away than the supreme and higher domains. The 5 invincible domains were arranged in a ring, and at their core was a huge continent. Zhuan's gaze was instantly attracted to the continent surrounded by the 5 invincible domains. This continent is, Zhuan muttered to himself. Old man Anshi pointed at the continent surrounded by the invincible domains and said with a proud smile, "This continent is the primeval heavenly Tao Academy." So this is where the primeval heavenly Tao Academy is located. Ziyang and Luo, you were surprised. They had never been to the invincible domains or the primeval heavenly Tao Academy, so they naturally did not know the exact location of the primeval heavenly Tao Academy. Because Duan Jiping had been to the extraterritorial battlefield, he had a rough understanding of the geography of the primeval Heavenly Tao Academy, so he was not surprised when Old Man Anshi mentioned it. Needless to say, Li Yinglong and the others were people from the Supreme Domains, so this was common knowledge to them. Chapter 4504. The extraterritorial battlefield is vast and boundless. It is full of dangers and opportunities. If you want to enter the extraterritorial battlefield, you can only go through the 5 invincible realms and the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. At this point, Elder Anshi paused for a moment and continued. This time, we will go to the extraterritorial battlefield from the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. Elder Anshi, the closest place should be the Boundless Realm. Why do we have to go to the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy, which is further away? Duan Jiping suddenly asked. He had entered the extraterritorial battlefield through the Boundless Realm. Elder Anshi looked at Duan Jiping and said seriously, because I have something to do in the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. Everyone was speechless as they looked at Old Man Anshi. It turned out that this guy had chosen to go through the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy because of personal matters. This way, he could deal with some of his personal matters. However, although everyone cursed in their hearts, they did not object. They also knew that Old Man Anshi was from the primeval Heavenly Tao Academy. This time, they could use Old Man Anshi's connections to get in through the back door. Although the speed of the divine ship was fast, the dark ruins was vast and endless. It would take a lot of time to reach the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. After the discussion, everyone went back to their rooms to cultivate. After Zhuowen entered his room, he did not cultivate his divine power. Instead, he began to meditate on Array Tao. He knew very well that it would be difficult for his strength to make a big breakthrough in a short period of time. Now, the only areas where he could still improve were his divine soul and Array Tao. During the voyage of the divine ship, Zhuowen frantically meditated on the heaven patching catalog and the thunder origin array diagram. And his formation's Tao level was also gradually improving amidst this kind of frenzied comprehension. Zhuowen's array Tao level, after decades of cultivation in the Kanglan realm, had reached the late stage of the third heaven of the eternal realm from the middle stage. In fact, he was only half a step away from the peak of the third heaven of the eternal realm. Zhuowen hoped that before arriving at the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy, his array Tao level could improve further and reach the peak of the third heaven of the eternal realm. Because, once he reached this realm, he could rely on the thunder origin array diagram to set up an early fourth heaven eternal realm array. Time flew. When Zhuowen gradually woke up, his soul instantly underwent a metamorphosis. A wave of understanding rose from his heart and washed through his limbs and bones like ripples. At this moment, his array Tao level had completely sublimated, reaching the peak of the third heaven of the eternal realm. Zhuowen patted his sleeves, but his eyes were neither sad nor happy. He knew that this was the result of his accumulation. After decades of meditation and cultivation in the Kanglan realm, his level of array Tao was already infinitely close to the peak of the third heavenly layer of the eternal realm. This time his luck was quite good. He had the opportunity to gain enlightenment, which was why he was able to progress so smoothly. In the following days, Zhuowen occasionally went out to meet Duan Jiping and the others. Occasionally, he would use the Thunder Origin Array to arrange an early-stage Fourth Heaven's Eternal Realm Grand Array. Although his array Tao had reached the peak of the third heavenly layer of the Eternal Realm, and he had the assistance of the Thunder Origin Array diagram, it was still not enough. However, it was still difficult for him to arrange an early-stage Fourth Heaven's Eternal Realm Grand Array. The failure rate was very high. Now, the most powerful thing he had was the Peerless Thunder God Array, which was infinitely close to the Fourth Heaven's Eternal Realm and extremely powerful. Of course, the main reason why Zhuowen found it so difficult to arrange an early-stage Fourth Heaven's Eternal Realm Grand Array was that he didn't have an array diagram of the Fourth Heaven's Eternal Realm. The grand array he practiced was actually arranged according to his own imagination. Although it had reached the early stage fourth heaven's eternal realm, it was full of loopholes. After all, his level hadn't reached the fourth heaven's eternal realm, so he didn't have the ability to create a grand array of this level at will. For this reason, Zhuo knocked on the door of Old Man Anshi. "Zhuo Xiaoyu, what's the matter?" Old Man Anshi opened the door, invited Zhuo into the room, and asked faintly, "Senior Anshi, this Zhuo has a presumptuous request. It's about the array diagram of the early stage fourth heaven's eternal realm grand array." Zhuo sat opposite Old Man Anshi and asked a little awkwardly. Old Man Anshi's eyes lit up, and he asked in surprise, "You want the array diagram of the early stage fourth heaven's eternal realm grand array? Do you want to arrange a grand array?" Zhuo nodded and said, "Yes." Old Man Anshi was shocked and blurted out, "Zhuo Xiaoyu, are you already a divine array master of the fourth heaven's eternal realm?" Old Man Anshi had long known that Zhuo was also proficient in array Dao, but Zhuo should only be a divine array master of the third heaven's eternal realm. Could it be that he had broken through so quickly? Zhuo shook his head and said, "I haven't reached that level yet, but I'm very close. That's why I want the array diagram of the fourth heaven's eternal realm to comprehend the array patterns in it and prepare for my future breakthrough." Old Man Anshi sucked in a breath of cold air. Very close? This also meant that Zhuo was already a divine array master of the third heaven's eternal realm. This was also very amazing. At Zhuo's age, there were only a handful of juniors who could reach this level, even in the history of the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. "Zhuo Xiaoyu, are you sure you don't want to consider the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy? With your talent, if you can enter the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy, you will be like a fish in water." Old Man Anshi finally couldn't help but invite Zhuo again. In his eyes, Zhuo's cultivation talent was considered pretty good, but it was still far from reaching the peak level. But this formation's Tao talent truly shocked him. Zhuo's eyes flickered and he said, "Senior Anshi, I will consider this matter, but I have to wait until this relic is over. At present, I still want to focus on this trip to the relic." Old Man Anshi said apologetically, "This old man is rude. Speaking of array diagrams, there must be some in the Archean Scripture Pavilion of the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy." Archean Scripture Pavilion? Zhuo murmured. "Yes. The Archean Scripture Pavilion is the repository of the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. It contains 99% of the ancient books in the 100 domains, including books on divine powers, secret skills, array Tao, equipment Tao, alchemy Tao, and many other aspects. No other force can compare with its rich collection of books." Old Man Anshi's eyes lit up, and he continued, "When we return to the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy, I can help you take a look at the Archean Scripture Pavilion. But array diagrams of the fourth heavens of the eternal realm are considered important books in the Archean Scripture Pavilion. I may not be able to borrow them, but I can try." Hearing this, Zhuo's eyes flashed, and he hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Senior Anshi." Old Man Anshi waved his hand and said with a smile, "Zhuo Xiaoyu, you are too polite. After all, you and I have known each other for a long time. Of course, I won't refuse." Chapter 4505. After a few more days, the divine warship trembled violently and came to a stop. "Everyone, we have arrived at the continent where the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy is located." Elder Enshi's voice rang out in everyone's minds. Zhuo slowly opened his eyes, stood up, pushed open the door, and walked out. Through the huge floor-to-ceiling window outside the hall, Zhuo saw a huge continent suspended in front of the divine warship. The most prominent feature of this continent was the huge peaks. At a glance, one could see that close to 80% of the continent was formed by these massive mountains. As they approached the continent, Zhuo discovered that streaks of light were scattered all over the continent like stars in the sky, interweaving into a dense net-like route. These streaks of light were the tail lights of the divine warships as they flew through the void at high speed. Obviously, the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy was in the core area of the 100 outer domains. It could be said that the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy had frequent exchanges with the outside world. Of course, the so-called outside world was limited to the supreme and invincible domains. The other domains were not qualified to enter the continent where the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy was located. Moreover, even in the supreme and invincible domains, only those experts who were recognized could exchange and trade with the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. Is this entire continent under the influence of the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy? Ziyang and Luo, you looked at the huge continent in front of them, as well as the tail lights of the divine warships that interweaved into a net in midair. They were naturally shocked. Duan Jiping's eyes were also filled with surprise. It was his first time coming to the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy, and he was also shocked by the scene in front of him. This continent is ruled by the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy, but most of the people here are not from the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. The real Archean Heavenly Tao Academy is located at the core of the continent. That is the real location of the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. Elder and she walked out. When he saw everyone looking at the continent in shock, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and he pointed in the direction of the center of the continent. Everyone looked over and vaguely saw a dazzling brilliance in the center of the continent. There stood a huge peak that was far more majestic and tall than the surrounding mountains. On top of each mountain peak, there were many magnificent buildings. Moreover, they were emitting a bright light, as if they were in a fairyland. Under the instructions of Old Man Anshi, the divine ship docked at a dock in the south of the continent. The primeval Heavenly Tao Academy had a rule that within the primeval continent, flying divine artifacts were not allowed to casually travel through the air. These guides often travel between the primordial Heavenly Tao Academy and the edge of the continent, so they're more familiar with the terrain than the people from the primordial Heavenly Tao Academy. In a way, he's more familiar with the terrain than I am. Old Man Anshi naturally saw the doubt in Zhuo Wen's eyes. Moreover, I'm lead the way. Zhuo Wen couldn't help but roll his eyes when he heard Old Man Anshi's words. Let's go. The young man roared enthusiastically. The huge flying beast under him flew into the air and let out a strange roar. Under the influence of the huge flying beast's roar, the flying beasts under Zhuowen and the rest flew up and followed behind the huge flying beast. Indeed, the entire Archean continent is set up with an extremely powerful anti-flight restriction. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes as they flew high in the sky. He immediately felt the faint fluctuation of the restriction in the sky. Zhuowen knew very well that the fluctuation of the restriction was specially targeted at cultivators. Once a cultivator tried to fly in the sky, he would be attacked by the anti-flight restriction and blasted down from the sky. As the flying beasts went deeper into the Archean continent, Zhuowen and the rest became more and more solemn. The closer they got to the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy, the more restrictions there were. Although these restrictions had not been activated and were merely concealed, it still caused Zhuo to tremble with fear. He knew very well that once these restrictions were activated, they would be seriously injured even if they did not die. The Archean Heavenly Tao Academy is indeed powerful. Zhuo sighed in his heart. They had set up anti-flight restrictions on the Archean continent and hidden so many formations in the area near the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. This was not something that any random force could do. Moreover, as they went deeper into the huge mountain area of the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy, the terrain became more complicated. What a complicated terrain. If no one leads us, we will definitely get lost in this area. Duan Jiping said in horror. The rest nodded in agreement. It was no wonder that they needed an experienced rider to lead them into the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. With such a complicated terrain, it would be impossible for anyone to get out smoothly. Zhuowen could even feel an extremely powerful aura in this terrain. The moment they entered this place, these auras locked onto them like a hurricane. However, after discovering that they were all riding on flying beasts, the auras changed and ignored Zhuowen and the rest. The deeper they went, the more frightened they became. This was because the deeper they went, the more hidden experts, formations, and traps there were. Finally, the flying beast stopped in front of a huge mountain gate. Everyone, this is the mountain gate of the Archean Heavenly Tao Academy. Chapter 45:10. Yes, I only need 3 days. After 3 days, we will set off for the extraterritorial battlefield. Zhuowen said seriously. Seeing Zhuowen's confidence, old man Anshi didn't want to refute him, so he nodded in agreement. After entering the room arranged by old man Anshi, Zhuowen set up restrictions around the room and sat cross-legged in the middle of the room. First, he took out the eternal divine killing array. Mufeng released the primordial stone and began to help him comprehend the array. After comprehending it once, he memorized all the complicated patterns in the eternal God-killing array. Then he took out the thunder source array and tried to set up the array by simulating it. As Zhuowen continued to familiarize himself with the thunder origin array diagram, he had also developed many functions for it, and the simulation of setting up an array was one of them. Through the thunder origin array diagram, he could simulate and set up all kinds of array formations and restrictions inside. After Zhuowen became proficient in the operation, he would collect the corresponding array materials and start to arrange the array, thus increasing the success rate of the array. Zhuowen set up the eternal divine killing array again and again in the thunder source array, but he failed again and again. He had to admit that the difficulty of setting up an array at the fourth heaven of the eternal realm was really high. Even with the help of the primordial stone, the thunder source array, and so on, the failure rate was still so high. Zhuowen set up the array from early morning until late at night, and finally succeeded in the early morning of the next day. Zhuowen's mind was in the thunder source array. When he saw the terrifying killing array in front of him, his eyes flashed with excitement. After setting up the array day and night, he finally succeeded. When his mind withdrew from the thunder source array, he let out a long sigh of relief, and the corners of his mouth revealed an excited smile. He knew that the model of the eternal divine killing array was left in the thunder source array. He only needed to collect the corresponding materials for the eternal divine killing array, and he could easily set it up. I have most of the materials for the eternal divine killing array, but there are a few main materials, which are really rare. I don't have them on me at the moment. Zhuowen looked at the list of materials for the eternal divine killing array and frowned slightly. It seems that I need to ask Senior Anshi. Zhuowen muttered to himself. He then kept the ancient ultimate killing god array and took out the mysterious incomplete array diagram. This formation diagram had extraordinary origins and was related to one of the founding ancestors of the primeval Heavenly Tao Academy, so its might was definitely extraordinary. I can only rely on the primordial stone. I hope it doesn't disappoint me. Just like the female cultivator in yellow had said, she couldn't tell what was so special about the big yellow divine pill. She glanced at Zhuo and hesitated for a moment before she said, "Fellow Taoist, why don't I call an appraiser over for you?" "Okay." Zhuo gave Xiao Qing a long look. His eyes were sharp. Naturally, he could tell that Xiao Qing couldn't appraise the big yellow divine pill. However, this woman was very serious about her work and was willing to call an appraiser for him. This made Zhuo like her. "Xiao Qing, are you crazy? The owner of the counter is very busy. The counter is about to close. If you go and bother the owner now, you'll get scolded." The female cultivator in yellow was in a bad mood. "It's okay. What if the big yellow divine pill is real?" Xiao Qing smiled and walked into the room behind the counter. "Oomph. You are a liar who wants to fish in troubled waters. If you had taken your fake big yellow divine pill and left, maybe you wouldn't have made a fool of yourself. But now it's too late." The female cultivator in yellow taunted. Zhuo didn't even look at the female cultivator in yellow. This woman was ridiculous. He was too lazy to talk to her. The female cultivator in yellow saw that Zhuo was ignoring her and became angrier. The words that came out of her mouth were even colder and more sarcastic. In the inner room behind the counter, several black-robed old men were in the midst of a discussion. When Xiao Qing walked in, she caught their attention and they all frowned. "Wu Xing, your new disciple, doesn't know the rules. How can she just barge in when we're in the middle of a discussion?" An old man with a red nose glared at the nervous Xiao Qing. Then, he glared at the skinny elder. The skinny elder said helplessly, "Xiao Qing just started working here not long ago. She's old, please forgive her." Then, the skinny elder's gaze landed on Xiao Qing. "Xiao Qing, why are you here?" the skinny elder asked. Xiao Qing nervously lowered her head and didn't dare to look at the skinny elder. She held onto the big yellow divine pill and said, "A customer said he's here to exchange for contribution points. I can't tell if this big yellow divine pill is real or fake, so I wanted to ask you to do it." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.